The moon is shining brightly in the sky, and many warriors with weapons are standing around. The #1 player in the world's first VR RPG game, member of Endgame Boss, the longest top-ranking guild. The raid leader of all raid leaders has been missing for 7 days. During the night, a volcano erupted behind the forest. A monster whistled out of the lava in the center of the volcano. The player shouts that the boss is coming and asked everyone to prepare control abilities. Control effects is a generic name for effects and techniques that deprive the enemy of the ability to move and fight at full strength, in order to deal large amounts of damage. The warriors pointed their spears and were in full readiness. The monster raised his hand and the 2 girls aimed their arrows in the air, but nothing came out and the arrows flew past the monster. The player shouted that the monster was immune. The cheers from the battle could be heard all around. The volcano was still erupting. Swords and spears were stuck into the ground all around. The attacked guy was looking at the monster and laughing, saying that the monster hadn't even lost 10% of its health. The guy heard someone's footsteps towards him and assumed that the monster had decided to give him a final blow. But suddenly, another guy stood next to him and he looked at him questioningly. The monster roared and began to regain health. The guy smirked and said that attacking a non-full enemy is not cool. He took his sword out of its sheath, swung the sword and dealt many attacks to the monster, after which he pushed himself off the wall and continued to fight the monster. The guy who was watching was dumbfounded by their fight and all those flashes of light from sword strikes. The boss tried to take down the player with field, but could not. The raid leader activated his incredible skills, and a silhouette of a girl started to appear on the screen. The girl leaned her hand against her forehead and thought about it while watching the video. She concentrated on her thoughts and was annoyed. Vice Master of the Endgame Boss Guild named Choi Yu-jong. A video called Endgame Boss of Raid Leader exploded the net in just a week. It turned out to be more popular than she thought. A recommended video called The Disappearance of a Top Player. When the raid leader disappeared from everywhere, users from all over the world reacted and he started gaining popularity. Leaning back in her chair, she thought that they all really don't realize that people don't just disappear like that. A notification came to her phone with a link and she clicked on it. Someone had texted her. She really didn't know where he had disappeared to. Maybe he just started playing other games and didn't really go missing. She replied that she didn't know herself, and that she too was evil and could disappear too. No one cared about him, but as soon as he went missing, all his videos went viral. The person she was talking to even got an invitation for an interview from a crime investigation program. Did she get that too? She covered her face and sighed heavily. She just ignored it and advised her to do the same. The girl replied that the game was no longer the same without a leader, and asked if she wanted to switch to another game. She was surprised at this suggestion, and the girl texted her a link to another game that is trending right now. It's an Astrom game that will be out in 7 days. At this point, she thought of something and started typing something on her phone. She received a notification that she had downloaded a new update and needed to confirm it. At this time, the girl saw that the raid leader was offline and wondered if something had really happened to him. Endgame Boss Guild, Guild Rank 6. So Charon. The guild girl who was strangling the monster asked, and where could a person who logs in for 16 hours at a time disappear to? So Charon asked, maybe he passed out? Nowadays, many players are passing out due to overwork. The girl replied that in that case, people must have started making a fuss. She is also from Endgame Boss Guild. The rank in the guild is 4th. Yan Daeyeon said that at this rate, they would cease to be a top 1 guild, although they were basically only that way because of the guild head. Seo Charon shouted out that even if everyone left, they should still wait for him until the last. An urgent notification from the system came to them. She wondered, a general notification? The surreal Astrom game has finally been announced. They should click on the link below for details. They asked, is it Vice Guild Master? Endgame Boss latest plans to create a guild in the new surreal game, Astrom. The system window says that those who want to conquer the new game with them should let them know in the guild chat. Seo Charon and Yan Daeyeon, seeing this notification, were surprised, and Yan Daeyeon said that it looks like their guild master has already left for that game. Meanwhile, in the Astrom development building, the workers are in a room with special equipment next to the guild master lying on the bed. The guild master had headphones on his head and a special virtual reality device. The man in a cold sweat asked why he didn't wake up. The ones in the other rooms had woken up a week ago. He would make an emergency request, and if this guy didn't come to his senses in 10 minutes, his assistant would have to inform him. The developer thought that there was no problem with the game itself. The artificial intelligence developed this, so he doesn't have access to it. If such a report gets to the president, he can't avoid problems. Meanwhile, in the conference room, negotiations were taking place. Out of 100 test subjects who have undergone 13 tests, one still has not woken up. The developer asks in fear, should he send a request to the artificial intelligence to suspend production? The president rubbed his eyes and asked what is the condition of those who have woken up. The developer replied that with the exception of the raid leader, the results are the same as before the testing. The president bowed his head and said that in that case they should continue with the last testing, and asked if the reason could be the raid leader itself. If the problem is only with the last test, then they will think about it if that happens. After a while, the action takes place in the forest. Raid leader Khan Daichin was walking around the forest and didn't realize what was going on since no one had entered for days. A week ago, he and his comrades were attacked by a lone cave devil, and they decided to get rid of him. They set out to attack it, but in the end the team leader was left all alone in front of the monster. Even the monster was surprised at what was happening. And the leader turned around and saw that there was no one around, then rushed to run away from the monster. He thought of killing the monster with the team. He is trembling with shame and doesn't understand what he should do now. They have an online raid in Rue tonight. He thought that if he didn't show up, the guild deputy himself would eat him alive. The monster jumped out of the water and Daichin bounced away, bringing his sword with him. The monster was getting closer and closer, but Daichin gripped his sword tighter and went on the attack. The monster fell underground and ended up deep in a cave. The monster hesitated. The player disappeared so suddenly. I guess the monster looks pretty strong. It is a very satisfied raid boss. Training begins. Daichin swung his sword among the other players. They were wondering who this weirdo was and why he was just waving his sword around like that. Daichin didn't realize, what is this? This is already the 13th test beta. Why would the players need a tutorial? He thought it was also a village, which was strange. The players were surprised by the very realistic movements, and Daichin thought they were new beta testers. Judging from their behavior, they were definitely newbies. A girl came up behind him and asked, "He's a player, right?" She can't tell the difference between player and NPC yet. Daichin was dumbfounded by those words, and a system window appeared in front of him. A player under the nickname Woodchuck Chuck started a dialogue with him. He could choose a response based on his relationship level and the topic of conversation. Since this is his first conversation with the player, he will not be able to give the player a quest. He thought, what is this? Why can't he talk? Have they changed the system already? The girl wondered. A dialogue box is created. His personal relationship level with the user is 0. He has 2 question options available for him to choose from. He thought about the fact that he had seen this somewhere before. Daichin started to look like a second-rate unprocessed NPC, and asked the girl how she found this place. She realized it was an NPC after all. Daichin realized the horror of the situation and realized that he was an NPC. At this time, the developer pressed the button at the entrance of the room and walked in there. Standing in front of Daichin, he took a flash drive with shaky hands and stuck it into the device, and then the person's data appeared. He thought that so far he didn't have any health problems, but if he pressed this button, Daichin might die. He pressed the button in great fear and the VR goggles lit up with red light. The developer covered his face with his hands from the realization of what he had done. After a while, a fight broke out among the monsters and players. They hit each other with swords. One of the monster's arm was torn off and fell to the ground. Another monster's limbs were also torn off. Daichin shouted to the trainee, "Hey you!" The trainee turned around, causing him to be attacked several times. He apologized to Sir. Daichin put his hand to his head and had nothing to say. He wondered what he had done wrong in his life to be stuck here with these idiots. Daichin asked the girl how she found this place. She thought, is he an English textbook or something? Maybe it's a simple NPC? She replied that she was a regular adventurer and asked, is he a local by any chance? The system window reports that a chat window has been generated. Intimacy with the user he is chatting with is 0. He has 2 question options to choose from. 1, he can't tell her that. 2, he also arrived here recently. He clearly didn't like the given answer choices and wondered, should he just say this nonsense? Daichin says he too arrived here recently. System window asked if he wanted to continue this conversation. He decided to continue their dialogue. Daichin put all his emotions in and asked why she is looking for strangers. In the end, his question still sounded like a pre-written text. The girl would like to know more about this place and help the villagers. The system window reports that he has learned more information about the user. His affinity level has increased by 1. A quest can be granted based on a conversation with the user. Does he wish to give her a quest? He rejoiced at the appearance of the first quest, but the system window reported that an unauthorized login was detected. The current from the flash drive reached even Daichin. The developer looked in horror at the screen where there was a warning that an unauthorized login had been detected. An automatic switchover to emergency mode operation began. He wondered, could it be possible that this guy was dead? He started shaking even harder and wondered what he had done. Daichin got up from the bed and touched the developer, who cried out in fright. Suddenly, Daichin fell on the floor and started doing push-ups. The developer jumped on the desk out of fear and thought, what the hell is this? How would he report this to the director? The developer imagined telling him that the guy died and then started doing push-ups. Is he taking the president for an idiot or something? Why is this happening to him, and why is he suffering like this? Leader's raid house. Yuchan gets in front of the sink and looks in the mirror. This must be the only place he can go back to. She lies down on the couch and wonders if he will even come back. A new message arrived on her phone from the Astrum developer. She wiped away the tears that were coming out and thought, what is it? He sent a video to Raid Leader's guardian so she wouldn't worry about him. Yuchan's eyes rounded at the message and she turned on the video. In the video, the developer asks Raid Leader to stop doing that, but Daichin keeps doing push-ups anyway. She jumped up from her seat and started shaking. Is he really alive? Daichin found himself in an empty, quiet space and wondered where fate had led him this time. This is supposed to be the stable version of the game build, so why is this happening? It's one thing too, a surge of pain. But what awaits him now? He heard loud system sounds and turned around. The system window reports that a third-party device connection has been detected. The system has blocked all external paths. The emergency mode is activated. The user can feel a mild electric shock. His body was immediately covered in electricity, but it was not a mild discharge at all, but a real torture. For the safety of the user, the game will be restarted, and a tutorial will be launched. Daichin completely glowed with electricity, and with a whoosh disappeared from space. The system window said that to make the loading faster, the user's class and mission would be randomly selected. If he was unsure of his safety, he was advised to turn off the game. He shouted, "So let them turn that thing off finally." But still he was erased from space, looking forward to a fun game. After that, Daichin landed in the forest. He fell like a meteorite because his fall created a crater in the ground. It was hard for him to catch his breath, but he thought it was finally over. Suddenly a huge chest fell in front of him and he thought it was a reward for completing the training. He thought, did he really live through all that agony for some measly reward? Daichin opened the chest and realized that he was right. The chest contained a sword and some items. He had years of experience playing RPGs under his belt. This would be easy. He saw a note that said, "Flourish as the squad leader of the Order of the White Bear." He has a mission available to him. His role is the faction leader of the Order of the White Bear. He must complete 3 missions, including 1 hidden mission. In the first mission, he must pump 4 soldiers to level 20. In the second mission, he must clear the rat hole dungeon. The third mission is hidden. In the fourth mission, he must issue a quest to the user. The missions will count as a failure if the character or soldiers die. If he fails, the next role will be issued with a penalty. As a condition, he cannot leave the kingdom. Daichin realized that this was definitely an NPC assignment. This simply couldn't be. Did something go wrong in the real world? He can't be dumb and idle. What could have gone wrong during the game at all? He decided to first think about how to get out of the damn game. He waved his hand and yelled, "Quit the game," but nothing happened. Then he made an incredibly heroic face and said, "Quit the game." He repeated this action again, and suddenly someone hit him in the face with a hammer and he flew a long distance away. He was attacked by a player with the nickname Middle School Thug who loved to beat up NPCs. He started approaching Daichin with a hammer in his hand. The system window reports that Daichin has taken damage from the attack of the user Middle School Thug. He can now attack his opponent to get revenge. If he wins, new achievements will be unlocked. Daichin grinned and remembered that he was in a bad mood after today's incidents, but the punching bag and stress reliever had come to him just in time. The middle school thug wanted to hit Daichin's head again, but he dodged it. He doesn't know where this guy came from, but if he thinks he's a simple NPC, he's very wrong. The middle school thug wondered why it was moving like a player. He swung his hammer again and told him to try and dodge this attack, but suddenly he noticed Daichin running straight at him. He attacked the guy in the arm, but this blow was weak. Turning around, middle school thug saw Daichin right next to his face. The guy blocked this attack thanks to his iron armor on his arms. Daichin got rid of him in the most shameful way of all. Middle school thug asked, "Is this definitely an easy village for beginners? This guy is too strong." Daichin continues to attack the jerk and thinks about what he said. Since it's a beginner village, does that mean the game is officially released? He unsheathes his sword and attacks his opponent again, causing him to fall to the ground. Daichin doesn't care because he won anyway. As the middle school thug lies on the ground, Daichin puts his sword back into its scabbard and wonders if he's really that cool. An adult who's proud to have defeated a child. The system window reports that all strikes other than the initiating one have been blocked. He unlocked the achievement, "Don't look down on NPCs." He gained the ability to attack the user without taking damage before. Daichin was surprised that this would allow him to attack first. The system immediately alerted that he would be penalized for killing the user in his next roll. Daichin started yelling that this should be warned in advance. It has been 10 days since the raid leader disappeared. The Astrom game is officially open. Did the artificial intelligence self-release the game? Astrom Productions' IG soft development room. The developer shouts, 72000 download? They need to restart the servers immediately. They haven't finished testing, they were days away from release. How did this happen? What about the official announcement? Did they decrypt the data from the artificial intelligence? One of the specialists opened the door and shouted that the official statement had been released. They had just finished decrypting it. The employee brought the developer the results, and everyone started reading. What does it say? There are no errors, the server is up and running. At this time in the game, Daichin was near two unknown players who were swinging their swords. He told them to stop and listen. They should raise their sword blade higher. They looked at each other and replied, "Yes, sir." They laughed at each other for being fools. Daichin thought, he obviously won't be able to get out of here. Not out of the game. Not out of this location. One of the guys asked if this would increase their strength. Daichin held his head up and told these ignorant fools that they had to be awesome to gain power. The guys looked at each other and replied that they would remember that. He figured nothing was going to happen and it was time for him to call it a day here. Daichin wondered if that meant he had to take orders like these guys. He took the helmets and told the guys to stop. The guys stopped and he put the helmets on their heads. He has no choice but to try to do this. The next step is a real fight. The system window says that one mission task has changed. Due to the penalty for killing a user, the conditions have been lowered to 2 soldiers and the level requirements have been raised to level 30. The guys hit the road, and Daichin thought about how the fine pisses him off every time he sees it. He shouted to the guys to wait, so that he would go to investigate first. One of the guys said that Daijong even does all the hard work himself, so what does it mean to be cool? Daijong looked at the map and thought that the place must be located here, just like in all games of this genre. He took out his sword and cut through the bushes in search of hidden places. You should usually receive a notification at this point. And so it happened. The system notifies you about a nearby user. The window will be generated to match the situation. Special tasks can be issued regardless of the proximity level. The user came closer, said hello, and said that he had heard that there was a quest monster living here somewhere. These are monsters that need to be killed to complete the task, but he didn't find any. Daijong remembered that his students had killed all the monsters in the area, so this situation came out awkward. The system window notifies that a chat window is being created based on the user's questions. For NPC convenience, the chat window will switch to quick mode. The first answer is that soldiers are training nearby. The second answer is that if he is looking for a monster, he will find it in the rat hole dungeon. Daijong chose the second answer. Next line. If the user finds a rat hole, then Daijong will give them a small reward. Second answer, it can't tell the user the location of the dungeon, because that's the job of an adventurer. Daijong chose the second option and mentally already paid the price for it. He must find a dungeon crawling with giant rats that are tormenting the kingdom's farmers. A stranger who found himself in an alien area. For travelers exploring the world, the dungeon is a dream destination. The traveler must find a dungeon where rats hide in the name of the farmers of the kingdom. Quest details are unknown due to insufficient proximity. Rewards cannot be viewed due to insufficient proximity. The user asked with shining eyes, "Quest?" He started begging him to leave it to him. Daijong sees this guy completely not so radiant with joy, but rather crazy. He is indescribably greedy. Daijong thought that this was why gamers were treated badly. He chose the answer that he was giving this guy permission to go on a quest as long as he stayed away from him. Daijong didn't even have time to finish speaking, and the guy had already disappeared. He held his head and thought, what was that just now? How do I give him a reward for the task? He decided to deal with it later and whistled to his students. After a while, the girls from the guild walked through the game world, looking at everything around them. Charing was surprised that you can even smell things in this game. Now Dagyong-eun understood why everyone was moving to Astrum. Yujong suggested that they first register a guild until the name is taken up. Charing asked why only her clothes are incredibly elaborate. She actually wants something like that too. Yujong turned around menacingly and told Charing that they needed to start a guild first. Charing was a little upset, and they moved on while someone was watching them. At this time in the forest after 1 hour of shoveling. Good posture makes a soldier stronger. Daejong seems strange that they should have already found a burrow or cave. Suddenly, that user jumps out of the bushes and says that Daejong is an idiot, since he thought it was a cave. Daejong was already scared of this jerk. This is not true, because in fact the rat hole is right here. They raise their heads to the treetops. The system window informs you that the quest is completed. This adorable user has revealed the secret of the rat hole to farmers. An hour of in-game time was spent. In addition to experience points, Daejong can choose any reward and give it to the user. Daejong looked at the system window, which has 3 reward selections. The first reward is the Kingdom Avengers quest chain. The second reward is a handwritten memorandum that can be exchanged for royal achievements, and the third reward is 2 gold coins. He thought that the memorandum wasn't enough and wondered, do they really want Daejong to give him their gold? He saw that user's greedy face and started shouting and choosing the first reward. Daejong shook the user's hand and said that he was touched by his generosity. As a member of the Order of the Polar Bear, he sincerely thanks him. But in his mind, he wanted the fool to get out of here right away. He asked him to continue the quest chain. The user smiled haughtily and ran off, humming that it was very pleasant to complete tasks. Daejong thought that he should first clear out the rat cave. He asked the 2 guys if they had heard it. He told them not to leave a single rat alive, after which they scattered in different directions and began to cut through the bushes. He saw huge rats begin to crawl out of the tree. There is a strict order of mission completion. Daejong started shouting, "The knights follow him!" He thought about how after the user completed the task, the rodents started to appear. He shouted to the guys to fight and cover each other. He thought it was extremely important that the difficulty level was too simple. There must be something else. He ran to the huge tree and wondered what he needed to do. He leaped high and pushed a tree with his foot. The mark of his foot was left on the bark of the tree, and Daejong ordered the boss to come out. Guild office. Yujong leaned on the table and said, "Endgame boss." She put 1 gold on the table and said that their guild would be called Endgame Boss. The employee is sorry to say this, but yesterday one person came and registered this name. Yujong asked dumbfounded, how can this be? What crazy freak dared to steal their name? She demanded to know the name of the guild master. The employee said the man's name was Middle School Thug. At this time, Daejong was hit by needles from the tree and began to fight off these attacks. The tree began to rustle its leaves and a monster hedgehog fell out with a whoosh. Daejong thought, why is this hedgehog so cute? Hedgehogs are always cute, but he needs to cut it in half. The system window informs you that the secret mission is unlocked. The requirements for opening the 3rd hidden mission were met, and the formation of the mission task began. He was surprised, the 3rd mission, and remembered that this is the hidden mission. The system window tells him that he needs to tame the boss by any means possible. Daejong didn't understand. Tame what? Meanwhile, the hedgehog ran to attack Daejong. He asked if they were bullying him. After a while, the white flag flutters in the wind. The rats have given up and accepted defeat. The guys tried to catch their breath and, looking at each other, began to rejoice at the victory. Their joy didn't last long because at the same second, there was an explosion from the fight between Daejong and the hedgehog. They were facing each other on the battlefield. Daejong looked at the hedgehog and said that this little thing still didn't obey him. This hedgehog is getting on his nerves. He took a red-colored potion and smashed it on the hedgehog. The hedgehog's health was restored, and Daejong told him to come here. After all, he should discipline him a little. They rushed to attack each other. The hedgehog jumped right at Daejong, but he used the raid leader's special skill Fierce Flick. Hit enemies will receive a random status debuff, and when hit in the head, an additional effect will be added. The hedgehog flies off from a powerful blow and falls to the ground. The hedgehog began to squeak plaintively because of the lump on its forehead. Daejong suggested that the hedgehog repeat this 10 more times to instill proper discipline in him. One of the guys asked why he was like this. Another said he had no idea. At this time, Thug stands in the square and announces the cloning of the currency for just 1 gold. Does anyone want to duplicate their money? Yujong apologizes and asks, is he the master of the last guild? Sangsu replies that everything is correct. Yujong asks if she can find out where he is now. Sangsu asks, does she need help with the crypt? Yujong Choi, Cherin Seo, and Dagyong Yoon watch the action through the screen. Yujong Choi asks, a money-duping scam? Is he really a middle schooler? Cherin replies, how cute. Yujong Choi thinks kids are easy to handle. Sangsu sits near the fountain and offers everyone turn 1 gold into 2 over a loudspeaker because of a bug that has been in the game since beta testing. First come first, serve to only 3 people. Yujong Choi walks past a crowd of players, and they are surprised at how beautiful she is. Is she a high level? She walks right up to the guild head and asks curiously, Sangsu? He takes off his glasses and is embarrassed that she has approached him. He replied that yes, it's him, and abruptly asks, Crypta, you, how much? She took his hand and told him to put things aside, and suggest that we talk one-on-one. He began to shake with embarrassment and asked again, what kind of conversation is this? Yujong Choi replied that it was a secret conversation while smiling at him. She moved closer to him and said in his ear, let him sell her his guild, and if it's about money. But she didn't have time to finish. He took his hand away, said he couldn't do it. He pushed his hair back and said that only when his king returned would he report back to him. At this time in the forest, Daejong had already changed his clothes, put on a whistle and cap, and started to conduct classes with the hedgehog. He screams, head to the left. The hedgehog listened to what Daejong was saying and did as he said in disbelief. He shouted at the hedgehog and asked, is he still not awake? After which he ordered him to turn left 3 times. The hedgehog opened his mouth in surprise and was dumbfounded, looking at the knights who were mentally begging him to just turn to them, just to finish this already. The hedgehog looked at them, began to think about the situation, calculate the higher mathematical equations, and turned his head to the left, which Daejong was happy about. He was finally getting the hang of it. The hedgehog still doesn't understand anything. No matter how much Daejong thinks about it, he still can't understand why he has to tame this hedgehog. He told the hedgehog to answer in 1 syllable from now on and ask if he understood. The hedgehog stamped its feet and answered in its own way in the affirmative. Daejong put a cap on him, covering up his tumor. Daejong said it must hurt, he's sorry. This pretty cute hedgehog will now follow him. Daejong patted the new companion's head and smiled at him. The hedgehog looked at him with teary eyes and squeaked again in the affirmative. One of the knights asks where the red cap came from in the first place. The other knight replies that he doesn't know, and asked not to ask and just leave him. Daejong invited them to see how much they had improved their skills. Swordsman 1, level 30, trust points 15, loyalty 100. Swordsman 2, level 32, trust points 20, loyalty 100. Daejong thought it was fine after all. They had reached the required level mark, and they had also tamed the boss, but why didn't these guys have names? He unfolded the paper and thought about how he needed to check the assignment again. At this time, a battle was taking place in the forest between creepy monsters with fangs that attacked players with huge swords. A player named Tak attacked 2 monsters in a jump at once, which they were surprised and stood in a stupor. Yujong started casting a spell while a huge monster was running towards her. Tak threw the sword directly at the monster and prevented an attack on Yujong. She raised her hands up and formed a fire, after which she said that this geezer is a huge fan of their leader, and she thought that currently children do not play RPGs, after which she attacked the monsters. Cherin said that may be why the Raid Leader channel is so popular. Besides, isn't this the most popular game right now? Dagyong asked her. Does she mean to say that he doesn't want anything? Yujong said that this kid wouldn't cede this title to anyone other than the leader, but if they formed a guild, then he might consider an alliance. At this time, Daejong started to reread the mission content and tried to find something. He remembered asking the player, where did she find this place? What did she say, NPC? How angry and enraged he was at what had happened, and how the system window popped up in front of him, telling him that if the user was killed, he would be punished for the role. Remembering this, he thought about it. The system window reported that the task was completed. He will receive additional rewards for completing a hidden mission. To collect items, he needs to click yes and the mission will be completed. He reread that the goal is 3 missions, then tore the paper into pieces, and now he understood. He crumpled up the remaining pieces of paper and threw it, then put 2 fingers together to form a fire and burned the paper. Daejong needs the game to move forward. The system window closed. Daejong, looking at the fire in his hand, thought that artificial intelligence had underestimated him. He would not just let it go because in this game, he is the best. Daejong put out the fire, but there was smoke coming from his fingers and he was terrified. He recalled the days of closed beta testing, where he fought with other players and used different abilities. He thought, does this mean that his skills are still the same as in the closed beta? He formed fire again and thought it was funny. Man, fire is so cool. But at the same time, his fire went out again and the system window reported that he didn't have enough mana. He thought that it was a disgrace and turned his back on the knights. They said they didn't see anything and closed their eyes, and the hedgehog covered his eyes with a cap. Daejong was ashamed. He clenched his fist and suggested to go back first, to which all the members of his company agreed. They came to the castle, the gates of which opened in front of them, and were glad that they had finally returned. Unexpectedly, Daejong and the hedgehog were stopped by an invisible wall that prevented them from going any further. The knights turned around and asked why he couldn't enter. Maybe they were wrong about something. Daejong tried to break through the wall, but he couldn't do anything, and he thought, maybe this is a closed region. He looked at the hedgehog that was watching him. After that, he grabbed the hedgehog with one hand, pointed it at them, and told them to catch it, taking care not to injure it. The hedgehog got scared and tried to cover himself, shouting loudly. The developer and his staff could not solve the problem. The system window reported that an error was detected in the game system, an attempt to access a closed game system. If this fails, then Plan B will be used. The system itself blocked access, and now it can't log in. What's the point? The director entered the room and all the employees began to greet him. He asked, so there have been delays to progress again? He was told that it seems to be approaching the game rules. He was surprised and asked what rules. The employee replied that it looks like the main event is blocked, and all of a sudden after saying that, he's in the game thinking, damn, why him? I never thought it could be so intimidating. After walking a little further, he saw a crowd of people in front of the gate and thought, what is this? The guards stood and wouldn't let anyone in. A crazy quest-addicted player screamed in anger that this was his quest. The developer realized that they didn't even program this and asked, what's going on here? The guard replied that the entrance to the kingdom was blocked for them and asked them to turn around. The developer was very surprised by what was happening, and the player behind him took his head and went crazy. The director told the developer that it probably had something to do with the raid leader, so he should get into the game and find out what was going on there, and if he didn't, they were both dead. The player fell to the ground in front of the guards and thought, is he finished? The teammates Daejong fought with were able to reconnect with the game a few days later and appeared near the castle. The girl looks at the screen and says that their progress has been reset. The guy replies that it was a beta test. Of course, everything was reset to 0. Their equipment and items weren't up to their current level, so they needed to level up quickly and get them back. The girl was terribly upset about it. One of the knights was wondering why the raid leader hadn't contacted them yet. I thought he said he was planning to start a guild here too. The girl agreed and said that he was going to create a guild with players from Rue Online. One of the guys undressed and said it was time for them to move. The other knights reacted strangely to him, but he said that they needed to go back to the cave to capture the lone demon king, along with the guild master. At this time, Daejong threw the hedgehog right into that wall, but they both flew away from it. One of the knights asks, that's a bunt, right? Daejong, pulling out the hedgehog needles from his forehead, asked why it didn't work. The system window reminded him to complete the mission. Failure to clear the mission will prevent further progress, so he needs to complete the mission. A bonus reward has been added. If he wants to get a reward and complete the mission, then he needs to click yes. Daejong pushed his hair back and thought that this was how it should be. He clicked yes and told the system to do it right next time. After that, the barrier disappeared. Daejong helped the hedgehog up and adjusted his cap. The system window informs you that a different role will be assigned to it for more even promotion. The knights shouted, Raid Leader! He needs to become a mentor for the monster and change the depressed slime to a powerful one. Daejong thought, what does this mean? After saying that, he started to disappear and moved into the dungeon, which surprised him greatly. He looked around and a chest appeared in front of him. Seeing this, he asked, now the system doesn't even ask for his permission? Meanwhile, near the gate, the knights noticed Daejong disappearing and said that he didn't even say goodbye. Daejong said that he wanted to take it easy, but now it hurt his feelings. The hedgehog got on his back and looked at him happily. Daejong told this impatient little fella that they needed to check out the reward. Suddenly they heard a loud growl, which they found quite creepy for this cave. They turned around and Daejong took out his sword. A huge skeleton appeared in front of them and started attacking them, but it blocked the attack. Daejang dodged while holding the hedgehog in one hand and asked, "So this is how they play now?" He activated the raid leader's special skill and aimed fire at the monster. This is a pillar of flame that is designed for a limited period of time. He attacked the monster with ease, and it flew a long distance away. At this time, the player asks the girl at the counter, "Is the name Endgame Boss registered?" She agrees and asks if they would like to join this guild. All 4 players agreed. They brought up a low player who said they were the group that defeated the boss during beta testing. They want to join the guild because they want to fight alongside Daejang. He asked me to put them on the list. At this time, there was Sang-soo in the forest who thinks that something is wrong here. For the past few days, he feels like someone is following him. He looked back at the bush where something was rustling and moving. He remembered how he had offered players coin cloning and thought that it might be one of the players whom he scammed. Picked up a rock from the ground and said, "Hey, hey." He turned around and threw a rock right into that bush, but nothing happened. After this, he clearly needs bodyguards to protect himself. He's already having a nervous breakdown from this. He was leaning against a tree and looking through the Endgame Boss Guild window. Guild applications, 1991 applicants. 300 APM, 12 DPS. Police Department Jailer, level 30, support. This is not what he needs. He clicked on the intro button. They are the team that defeated the boss during beta testing. They want to join the guild because they want to fight alongside Daejang. Did Jelly My Fave write this? A team from beta testing? He pushed his hair back and thought that they were his new subordinates. By doing this, he will be one step closer to his goal. After a while, the hedgehog is sitting on the ground and eating a nut, and around it, explosions began to occur from Daejang's blows to the monsters, the remains of which fell to the ground. The skeletal remains began to fly everywhere and hit the hedgehog. Daejang tried to attack each monster, hitting their heads with his sword and splitting their skulls. One of the monsters pointed a crossbow at him and drew an arrow, but he fought back and split the skeleton. The hedgehog grabbed a bone from the ground and made a sharp killing weapon out of it, which he began to swing in different directions. Daejang thinks that his body has become much lighter. Holding the back of his head, he opened the system window, clicked on the chest, and decided to see what they had put for him. The chest opened and the system window showed Loot, Soul Collector's Earring, Growth Type Item Classification, Current E, 1 rating out of 10,000, Stamina and Mana plus 500, Intelligence plus 5. An artifact used by a legendary potion master who wore it at all times. After the experiments he conducted, it turned red. Perhaps there may be a special secret to this earring. The Zookeeper's Belt, an unidentifiable classification, has 5 uses left. This restores the damage, stamina, and mana of all of the user's creatures. When certain conditions are met, this ability will be unlocked. When the number of hits reaches 3, the item will be unlocked. The current number of hits is 1. Daejang thought they were giving him items like he was a player. He needs more information. In any case, if things are like this, then things will be different. Mission accomplished, he took the items with him, but he wondered if he was going to suffer again. The system window reminds him of his mission. He has a completely bad feeling about depressive slime. But before he completes the mission, maybe they need to do some more work. But where should he look for this slime? The hedgehog pointed with its paw to the right side, where there was a lot of colorful slime, but it wasn't the slime Daejang had imagined. It's a little different from what he expected, because normal slimes usually look cute. He grabbed the sword and said that it was even better that way, because he would get rid of them without the slightest sense of guilt. He cut down 3 slimes, but it seemed strange to him. He jumped away from the slimes and looked in fright at his sword, which had the remnants of the slime on it, which started to destroy the sword. Hedgehog fights against slimes with his new cool weapon, but it also began to melt from acid. He asked the system to show basic information about the enemy, and it really turned out to be acid slimes, which he found interesting because it would be more fun to destroy. Entrance to the dungeon. The developer wondered why they were doing this to him. Why did they decide to make this game so painful? Suddenly, there were strange sounds coming from the dungeon, and he thought that if he kept putting it off, he would get into trouble. This area is still under development, so no one else but Daejang would have poked their head in there, right? It would be great if someone else was there. He opened the equipment window. He'd heard that many games gave their employees full uniforms, but not this damned company. They must beg the AI to at least grant them access. He put on his equipment, got up, and entered the dungeon. The system window says that a message from Yu Gyeong was sent from the phone. Does he want to see it? He narrowed his eyes and sighed, thinking, this woman again? At this time, the hedgehog held his molten tool and sobbed over it. Dajang said that bones melt faster in acid. When they first encounter an opponent, they must land at least one hit to gain information about them. Now that he knows these monsters are acidic, they'll be fine. He patted the hedgehog's head, saying that he didn't need to cry over it. When they got out of here, he would make the hedgehog even better than the last weapon. The hedgehog was surprised and began to tell him something. Dajang said that they can't think about strategy but just attack from a distance. The hedgehog looked at Dajang with a puzzled expression while he created a fire to ignite his sword. This is a special skill of the guild master, Flame Aura. The skill thickens and releases the magic power of fire. Dajang swung his sword and shouted, "Come out!" Practical skill Exuberant Aura flying everywhere. Let them report where their friend Depressive Slime is. Dajang said that if he gets rid of all the mobs, then the main slime will come out on its own. Suddenly he swung his sword, but it didn't work, and the system window reported that he didn't have enough mana. He thought, what? How did this happen? But at this moment the slimes were already approaching them, and they decided to take their only chance. Dajang asked, do they really think that he can't kill them without mana? He would beat them until they were reduced to dust. The slimes began to fly everywhere from his blows. But suddenly the hedgehog began to show some movements, which translated means leave one slime alive. Dajang understood and said that he was giving the slime 50 seconds to bring in the depressed slime as long as he asked for it politely. Slime started making strange sounds in fear and trembling. Dajang asks what is the problem. Slime shows him an arrow to the right. Dajang asks, does it want to go together? Let him lead it. Slime clearly didn't want to do this and was sweating with fear. Dajang got fed up with this and let Slime get out of his sight. Due to the strong light, Dajang couldn't make out everything in front of him. Under the pillar of light sat a slime that was drawing a dumbbell in the sand. Dajang said that it does look depressing, although it looks more like half-sucked excrement. Hedgehog saw some object lying on the ground, and Dajang keeps insulting Slime with rotten potatoes. Slime saw the hedgehog and thought of the protein. The hedgehog touched a piece of dumbbell, and Slime was already behind him. The hedgehog started squeaking and Dajang saw it and started shouting, "No, what a fool!" At this time the slime had already enveloped the hedgehog and he was very scared and fell, but he was able to get up on his paws and stand up. Dajang followed him and thought that Slime didn't even have the strength to dissolve the hedgehog. He started giving out snaps to Slime, who almost died from it. Dajang looked down at his hand and then at the hedgehog, and saw the slime sadly leaving him. Dajang thought this was making him angry, then turned around and saw the hedgehog trying to lift a dumbbell. Dajang picked up a piece of rock and thought it was heavier than it looked. So this slime is also a gym rat? And since it's an acidic slime, it's been melting all this away? This is definitely not an easy mission. Final boss guild room, where guild members sit at a table and discuss something. One of the guys is named Flicker, rank 5. Yugjeong, rank 3, tells the guys that as they may have noticed, she was unable to contact Dajang after the closed beta ended. Something must have happened to him while he was in the game. Dagyung Yoon, who is ranked 4, asks, "So this is Astrom's doing?" Charon, who has a rank of 6, replies that she thinks so. Yugong puts her hands on the table and asks, "Or what? He's actually dead. If it wasn't him, what other idiot would use the nickname Raid Leader? It's a nickname he's used since the beta and the ID is still taken." Dagyong says she knows that's not what they meant. Charon replies that she is right. He hadn't received an invitation from either his friends or the guild. Tak Guan, a rank 2 guy sitting next to them, asks Yugyeong if the company creating the game has contacted her in any way. Yugyeong replied that they were still sending her automated replies, so she sent them another message. Tak Guan says that since they have no other options, they will have to look for clues in the game itself. Have all the guild members moved over from RAW Online yet? Yugyeong replied that almost everyone had moved except for some members who wanted to stay there. Everyone is complaining that the guild's name changed. For now, Charin, Daegyong, and Yugong will help the guild members adjust. She asked Tak Guan to focus on leveling up. They nodded, and Yugong asked Kong one last time, "When will the slow season start again?" He smiled and asked her what she meant by slow season. He told her it was off-season. At this time, the depressed slime falls to the ground, after which the hedgehog begins to reprimand it, putting its paws on its sides. Dajang wondered if he was doing something wrong. It respawns every 45 minutes, and since that was the 4th time, it's already been 3 hours. But during that time, there has been no change at all. He thought that if he forced Slime to train, he would change or something, but it turned out that it wasn't that easy. Come to think of it, even the rat hole quest was very strange. Now that he think about it, a slime being a gym rat is also weird. Hedgehog counted the number of push-ups Slime did, but Slime got tired and fell to the ground. He knows exactly the answer. Slime got up and started explaining something to them. Daejong and Hedgehog sat on a rock and stared at it. They didn't understand what Slime was saying at all. It would be great if someone translated this nonsense for him. Suddenly, the Hedgehog looked at him happily. Daejong says that this guy is definitely giving him hints, but there is no player around to help. No swordsman to command. No information about the quest either. The Hedgehog tried to draw attention to itself and shout something to get Daejong to look at it. But the guildmaster was still in his thoughts and thought that there was no explanation, even though he needed to use everything he had here. And suddenly he looked up at Slime and Hedgehog, saw something, and was very happy. He decided that he would just beat up Slime until the problem solved itself. The Hedgehog looked at him thoughtfully and smiled. A few minutes later he attacked several Slimes again and collected the diamonds that fell from them. There were already 100 of them. Daejang said it's a great move to start collecting crystals early, so this slime is actually quite useful. When the Hedgehog looked at the sad slime, he came up with an idea and started telling Daejong about it. Daejong asked, "Does he need to create a non-melting barbell? If it's just that, then it will be easy." And Hedgehog and Daejong gave each other a high five. Slime was still making some sounds, and Daejong asked, "What does it want? What is he asking for?" It only takes him a couple of seconds to create it. He opened the system window, picked up 2 axes and 100 stones. This is why players need to have at least a few skill points in the forging skill in an RPG game. He placed the molten crystal in the axe and combined it to create a blue flame in his hand. For an unpredictable game like this, a normal barbell wouldn't do that, right? He touched the invention with a blue flame and a strong light appeared, which illuminated Slime, an exclusive weapon just for this gym rat. It doubles as a barbell. Slime sobbed and screamed when he saw this. Daejong suggested that he try to pump it up. Since its acidic nature melted everything it touched, the slime grew depressed since it couldn't get his reps in. For Slime, he is literally a benefactor. This slime will be loyal to him for the rest of his life. And suddenly, right in front of their eyes, Slime turns into a huge pumped-up monster with tears of joy in his eyes. At this time, the employee decided to look at the message from Raid Leader's Guardian. She asked why she still couldn't get in touch with him. This training video wasn't made in advance, was it? He sent her a message that she can view his health status every day by opening the additional attached data. Outside of emergencies, reports will be sent every 2 weeks, so they ask her to be patient. Employee never be able to understand this woman. He went further into the cave and realized that there aren't any problems with the monsters respawning, but why isn't the environment repairing itself? He clicked on the camera in the system window, and now he finally understood the AI's reaction. There is definitely something wrong here. He went further into the cave and saw something, which made him ask in fright, "What is it?" A tunnel appeared in front of him and a system window popped up, which informed him that the server was being updated. Access was denied. At this time, Daejong was smiling as he looked at the new monster and asked, "Is this all serious?" Giga Slime scratched its head, after which it was cut into small pieces by someone. At this time, in the game in the town near the fountain, there were many knights who asked if they were here. There are more people than before. Still undressed, Jelly My Fave said, "Well, based on the guild's notice board, this should be the place." The endgame boss guild bulletin board is located in front of the fountain in the village square. Someone came up to the players and said he was happy to meet them. It was Sangsu. As expected from experienced subordinates, he is satisfied. Everyone looked at him with disgust. After that, Sangsu pointed a sword at them and said that when they see the master, they should greet him. Jelly My Fave asked what's wrong with this person with 8th grader syndrome. Then he grabbed him by the shirt and asked if he wanted to die. At this time, Giga Slime broke up into small pieces because it was attacked by another stronger monster named Baron Cave Mantis. The monster approached Daejong and wanted to attack him, but Giga Slime was nearby and killed the monster by hitting it on the ground. Regeneration. Unless the core is destroyed, the slime infinitely regenerates. Giga Slime grabbed his weapon and decided to attack the monster again. They had a serious fight, as Slime remembers the times when this monster scared his slime brothers. So at the moment, this slime was very angry and aimed to destroy this monster. Daejong thought, "Unnamed? Where did that come from?" A monster is a praying mantis that has lost its friends. Giga Slime spun his weapon in his hands and started attacking Mantis. These monsters were still fighting, trying to attack each other. Daejong said that this gym rat isn't half bad. He asked the hedgehog if they would watch it for a while. The mantis almost took out the slime's life core with its sting, but the slime took the mantis by the head and threw it to the floor. Giga Slime threw the mantis into the cave wall, and a loud explosion occurred. Daejong started applauding and said that raid leader is satisfied, and the hedgehog was surprised along with him and was also very happy. At this time in the city, Sang-soo attacked 4 players, but he was also hit in the face. He pulled his hair back as usual and told one of them that if he underestimated someone, he should keep in mind that he would pay for it. Jelly. My fave looked at it and felt a familiar feeling. This kid really looks like a raid leader. One of the players asked if the fighting style was similar, right? Sang-soo, level 21, Jelly my fave, level 5. After that, Jelly my fave suggested that players agree with everything until they meet a real guild master. One of the players said that this kid is a little annoying, but at the same time he is cool. The other agreed and said he was a little crazy, but strong, so it was fine. Sang-soo stood in front of them and asked, so they guys decided to be his companions? At this time, the monster was stuck with its head directly into the rock, and the hedgehog's stomach growled at the sight of the crystals that fell from the monster. He remembered Daejong saying that the hedgehog can eat whatever it wants. The hedgehog understood everything and began to gnaw on the crystal. By its appearance and tear of happiness, you can say that it is definitely heavenly flavor. But suddenly the slime that was crawling out of the monster began to approach the hedgehog while it was eating. Slime jumped on the hedgehog, which started screaming from fright, and flames came out of its mouth directly at the slime. Meanwhile, Yujong was looking at the screen in shock. She decided to search for articles about the leader raid on the Astrum forum. People were wondering, is it true that the raid leader is missing? Who used the nickname Raid Leader? Endgame Boss Guild has moved to Astrum. Will it be possible without a leader? The player writes that the raid leader's nickname is Busy, so it is possible that he did not disappear but simply decided to grind levels in Astrum. It's all part of his brilliant plan. He pretends that he is missing, but in fact gets popularity on a video hosting site, and later he will appear in front of everyone as a top 1 player in Astrum. Yujong thought, what is this nonsense? These freaks, she'll sue them. She wanted to know the nickname of the person who wrote this. The player wrote that as the most loyal fan, he watched the entire Raid Leader video on replay, praying that he was playing Astrum now. He decided to use the Raid Leader's nickname so that when he returned, he would give him his nickname back. But instead of a Raid Leader, all sorts of cranks write to him. Raid Leader fans are free to submit guild membership requests. Requests to confirm your subscription to the Raid Leader channel will be accepted automatically. He will keep an eye on the guild until the raid captain arrives. It was written by Sang-soo. And suddenly, Yujong realized that this is the same fool with the 8th grader syndrome and was furious. At this time, Daejong told Giga Slime that it was wonderful and asked it, so is it his usual size? Slime nodded, and the hedgehog looked at him open-mouthed. Daejong looked at the dead mantis and said that the monster was definitely dead, since it had been dropped with loot. Daejong opened the system window and picked up the mantis blade. He didn't think things could be resolved so quickly. Giga, Slime, and Hedgehog trained their skills, but Daejong distracted them and asked for attention. Slime and Hedgehog looked back at him questioningly, then rose up and walked towards Daejong. Daejong says if the goal wasn't to defeat a named monster, it must be this. There's a hierarchy for everything. Daejong patted the hedgehog's head and said that he wanted to give the hedgehog a name first. The hedgehog asked, Squeak? Daejong said that getting a new name means losing the old name. Is everything okay with this? The hedgehog said Squeak. Daejong said that in that case he would call it Squeakers. Squeakers asks, exactly the same name as the previous one? After these negotiations, Daejong suggested that they finish the mission and pointed at Slime, telling him to stop pressing the weight and come here. Since he's obsessed with slime training, he suggested calling it Jylime. Slime liked the name and smiled. The system window reports that the mission is completed. Congratulations on becoming a Beastmaster and succeeding in making a powerful named Slime out of a depressed one. Guylime has reached max intimacy level with Daejong. The special conditions have been met, so an additional mission has been added. This one cannot be turned down. Rewards will be given upon completing the mission. An additional mission appeared, make Guylime the boss of this dungeon. At the moment, there is no one stronger than Guylime, but he wants to become as strong as Daejong. This is a mandatory task. Daejong said that this is already more like the truth. Time to kill everything in this dungeon. Squeakers eats the crystal again while an explosion occurs from behind him from a huge iron weapon armed with a skeleton. Daejong thought that this mob was more powerful than the previous ones, but it was still weak. The skeleton swung its weapon at Daejong. Daejong took out his sword, and a long fight began. Daejong said that at this rate all of his healing potions would quickly go bad, and thought about how cool he was while mocking. Goilim walked up to him and, beaming with joy, began to pump his incredibly powerful muscles. Daejong was already tired of this and was wondering if it helped at all. It told Goilim to try to open the status window. Suddenly, he saw a status window in front of him and said it was crazy. The system window reported that Goilim has named class. Level unknown. Main characteristics are strength 420, agility 70, intelligence 30. The detailed view function is blocked, so it can only view the main characteristics. Daejong wondered, how is this possible? A strength of 420 points. If this slime decided to fight him, then Daejong would just turn into dust. At this time, Dagyong and Charon are walking around the mall. Dagyong Yoon asks if Charon doesn't think Yugong has been acting weird lately. Charon asked, "Again, Yugong?" Yes, she noticed it too. Dagyong said that when they entered the astrum, she's been pushing forward non-stop, as if everything was planned. Charon responds she's a perfectionist, always preparing for everything. Dagyong thinks that's why it's weird. Canceling a large-scale raid in a row online? Then immediately moving to a new game? Charon said that she even went out of her way to remind the raid leader to not be late this time. Dagyong started thinking about it. Row online, Astrum and IG Soft, raid leader and Yugyeong. There's something fishy. Charon picked up the phone. She was discouraged by what she saw and told Dagyong to look at it. It's an emergency summons. She received a message from the general chat about an urgent gathering. She needs to come and get ready immediately. The guild quest will start in 20 minutes. The developer looks at the system window that says that the guild quest has started. He shouted that it was a crazy jackpot. Today they would eat stewed Korean beef, juicy Korean beef. They were so excited about what was happening that they turned on the music and danced in the office. The developer thought, does this mean that the game already has 1 million users? It looks like they did something really impressive. With everything that has been happening with Raid Leader, he should tell that researcher the good news as well. At this time, a developer named Joe Yeonbi wasn't as happy as they were. In tattered clothes, he walked through the cave, holding a lantern in his hand. He said that the level of molten skeleton is 48, the level of acid slime is 55, but the average level among users is 19, and the highest is 33. He opened the notification window and said that this is crazy. How did this Daejang guy survive? Did he really kill all these monsters just by himself? He was sent a message from a colleague's phone. They have reached 1 million players and plan to have a Korean beef dinner today and offer it to him too. The guild quest has still started and the boss wants the employee to check it out. They're counting on him. Joe Yeonbi thought, this is a joke, right? He feels like his colleagues are making fun of him. He opened the system window and started studying the guild quest. The Kingdom of Arthur is in search of outstanding warriors. A martial arts tournament will be held to find the future knights of the kingdom. All Astrum users can take part. All applicants will be rewarded kingdom merit points upon accepting this large-scale quest. However, applicants must be members of a guild. After seeing these alerts, Joe Yeonbi was dumbfounded by the martial arts competition. But still, he should be safe as he is in charge of the leader's raid. But suddenly someone from the depths of the cave asked who was there. Joe Yeonbi was startled and turned around in fear. Was he asked again, captain of the raid? In the middle of the darkness, blue eyes lit up, asking who he was and why he was looking for him. After a while, entrance to the boss's lair. Daejong asked me to wait for the hedgehog here. He gave him a knife and told him that if he got bored, he could play with slime. He told Gailim to stop swinging already and go hunting. He activated the raid leader's special skill, Ice Aura. Frost began to form on his hands. Use the Aura Claw skill to form the sharpest claws from the aura. Daejong made a move, after which he decided that the one who attacks first wins and rushed to attack. His determined gait left deep dents in the ground. But when he entered the cave, he didn't see anyone, which was a disappointment to him. He took another step and the ground beneath his feet began to shake as something ran past him at high speed. He used the Aura Shift skill, which allowed him to move the active aura at high speed. He got down on his knees, stood in the most comfortable position, thought, what is this? Suddenly, a giant worm monster burst out of the ground. First there were slimes, and now worms? This dungeon is just disgusting. They moved towards each other. The worm tried to cover Daejong with some liquid, but he was able to dodge and was not hit. The liquid hit the ground and formed a huge hole, which could have been Daejong instead. The raid leader got angry, pulled out his sword and warned the worm that it would hurt. His sword became huge and very sharp at the sides, giving off a chill. and everything that was touched by this sword instantly turned into frost. He activated Swordsman Basic Skill Power Strike. Strike an enemy quickly using explosive strength. What if he heard someone growling in the distance and didn't understand why the sounds were coming from there? Suddenly, he looked up and heard the terrible roar again. At this time, the owner of the barren cave came out to the place where the Squeakers and Guylime were. It was an enormous monster, and the sight of it made Slime and Hedgehog shrink back in fear. The monster opened its eyes, the hedgehog saw its gaze and thought that the raid leader went inside the creature's mouth. The entrance closed, and then a crocodile appeared. Did Daejong get eaten? He froze in fear. Slime does not understand what is happening around him at all, and suddenly the hedgehog needles begin to burn and become covered with bright flames. He screams a lot, and the flames are even in his eyes, and out of his anger he directs the flames at the monster. Squeaker's exclusive skill, "This is fire, Squeaker," spit out a fireball. Using the Aura Rampage skill, the aura is scattered everywhere. The monster lights up with a bright light, and the hedgehog sees Daejong break through to them and insert a sword into the ground, after which an explosive wave occurs. Hedgehog is very happy that Daejong is alive and now near them. Blood appeared on Daejong's face, but it's the blood of a monster. Squeaker is so excited to meet you that he flies into the raid leader's arms. Daejong hugs him. But because of the flames on the hedgehog's back and Daejong's fingers, smoke appears, and Daejong feels that it is very hot, pushes it away from him. Slime looks at them from afar and smiles with sweetness. At this time, a monster with blue eyes begins to approach Jo Yeonbi and utters incomprehensible sounds. He falls to the ground and asks in a shaky voice, "Is this the raid leader?" Following this monster into the cave comes Guylime and Squeakers with angry eyes. Daejong notices Jo Yeonbi and asks, "Is this a player? Researcher from IG Soft?" They get closer, and Daejong asks loudly and insistently, grabbing him by the clothes, "What is he doing here and what is going on there?" Jo Yeonbi says in a shaky voice that he can't understand a single word of what he's saying. Is this really a raid leader? Daejong in the form of a monster keeps telling him something, but Jo Yeonbi asks again, what happened to him? The raid leader led the way. The system window informs you that it automatically moves from the moment the mission is completed. It will be given a new mission and role. This was unfavorable for Daejong, and he spoke out. What a horror. And at that moment, the Squeakers started to dissolve into pixels. Daejong noticed it and shouted, "Damn it! They'll meet again outside when Daejong gets out of here." Jo Yeonbi started to get up from the ground, and the system window reported that the dungeon was about to restart due to a system error. And, for the sake of user safety, the system would be forcibly shut down after 30 seconds. Jo Yeonbi was at a loss because of the mistake, and thought that it meant that it was definitely Raid Leader. He adjusted his glasses and noted that since the beta was completed, not a single problem has been fixed in the program. It turns out that the only way to find a leader must be this thing. Guylime stayed with Jo Yeonbi and took a look at the developer, then swung his weapon and attacked him, leaving only pieces of him. At this time, Daejong finds himself in the forest again, throwing a stone in anger and does not understand what kind of cursed game this is. This is always the case when he comes close to solving a problem. Suddenly a chest appears in front of them, but Daejong kicks the chest open with his foot and mutters that this nonsense doesn't help either. What a character he has. The system window reports that the mission has been forcefully resolved as the player did not check it in the given time. A greater reward is granted from clearing a chain quest. Rewards will be given immediately without confirmation. Daejong is furious and confused. He shouts that he can't even hit the system window. It's so infuriating, at this rate he's going to go crazy. He sat down on the chest, bowed his head from fatigue, and the notification came back to him. A new function has been added in order to proceed with the next mission. Manage Forces has been added. This is a function exclusively available to a high-ranking NPC. When the Manage Forces window is opened for the first time, a tutorial will begin. Daejong thought about how at least he got something out of it. Judging by the fact that the researcher was immersed in the game, there are no problems with Daejong's body in reality. He is sure that the researcher came to understand what is happening. Obviously, they don't let him out for some specific reason. He's sure that Astrum needs him. They mentioned that Astrum is a game in which artificial intelligence bases the gameplay on the received data. In that case, are they going to fill in the missing game data using it? Even the last few missions were different from other normal quests. These weren't even quests, but missions. If the fact is that he can directly influence the game, then this makes sense. In addition, tasks can be received by anyone, but only he is given missions. During such a long discussion, the hedgehog plucked and smelled flowers near Daejong. Daejong got up from his seat, flexed his hands into a fist, and thought angrily, "That's it, Astrum is still in development. The end of the game will be the moment of completing the Astrum." Well, knights in uniform rode their horses in the thick of the forest. They drove up to Daejong and greeted him. Daejong turned around, and after taking a closer look, he still remembered them. They opened their helmets and shouted with joy, "Raid Leader!" Daejong greeted them, but who is it behind them? They introduced him to their new colleague added for this mission. The mage said hello, but didn't reveal his face and said that he was recently assigned to a border patrol mission. Daejong asked thoughtfully, "Border patrol?" "The system window informs you that a new mission has been created. Protect the borders of the Kingdom of Arthur. Role: Leader of Border Patrol of this kingdom's Order of the White Bear. Its goal is to complete 3 missions and 1 hidden one. The first mission is to achieve the closest communication with subordinates. The second mission is to protect the borders during the guild quest. The third mission is to restore the walls. The fourth mission is hidden. The mission will fail if the character or soldier dies. If you lose, the penalty will be given next time. Condition: other users cannot be used." Daejong asked, why would he do that? He didn't open the chest because he wanted to rest. So this is how it's going to be, huh? Daejong turned to the new mage and offered to see what he could do for him. The system window reports that the soldier's name is Mage 1, level 30, popularity 10, loyalty 50, affinity 0. Daejong thought that this wasn't too bad, the same stats as the swordsman before they left. He decided to check on the swordsman's progress since their last meeting. The first swordsman has level 41, popularity 30, loyalty 100, proximity 80. The second swordsman has exactly the same indicators. They're even a little worried. Daejong looked at them and said with a smile that the guys did a good job. At this time, after the Guy Lime attack, a semicircular object and a notebook fell out of Joe Yeonbi. Suddenly, from somewhere, someone called Guy Lime and asked if he could hear him. It was Daejong and the Squeakers who communicated with him through the rune. The raid leader informed him that he would summon him soon, so he should keep leveling up instead of fooling around. Even if Guy Lime tries to answer him, Daejong still won't understand, so it's okay if he doesn't say anything. Finally, he told him not to lose this runestone. Guy Lime made a strange sound, rubbed his finger at his temple and thought, then the runestone fell to the ground. Guy Lime reached for this stone and remembered the molten bar, which made him sweat all over and worry that the runestone would melt as well. Nothing happened to the runestone, and he let out a sigh of relief. He put the runestone into himself and turned his attention to the notebook with inscriptions, where it was written about the beta test of the leader raid and the bug report. The system window reports that this is summoning rune, item grade B, rechargeable item, can be copied, can be used after 24 hours of initial copy. The same type of stone is duplicated and passed to the target specified by the user. The caster can summon a target holding a cloned runestone in the desired location. Can be used as a walkie-talkie at any time. Currently, 1 copied runestone has been created. Daejong took out the stone from the chest and said that it has many functions. He needs to give it to the swordsman and Squeakers too. Then he saw the necklace. This is a soul collector's necklace, growth type item rating E. Strength and mana plus 500, agility plus 5. An artifact used by a legendary potion master who wore it at all times. After all the experiments he conducted, it turned red. This is one of his 5 most prized possessions. Bonus effect when worn set, regenerate 1 mana point per second. Daejong wondered, another soul collector's item? Is there a set? The type of growth, even the set, is very cool. He put a necklace around his neck. The game maniac goes crazy for items. The hedgehog lay on the ground nearby and scratched its side, saying that Daejong was easy to please. Daejong decided to check out the earrings as well. Soul Collector's earrings, item class growth, current rating E-class 1991 out of 10,000. He looked thoughtfully at the system window and wondered, did he kill approximately 2,000 slimes in the Jylime dungeon? The necklace scores are the same as the earrings. Suddenly, one of the knights called out to Daejong and said that from now on he should walk around in this, handing him a cloak. Daejong asked why he needed Rob. The knight replied that he needed to hide his identity, after which Daejong asked again, does he need to hide himself? The knight handed him the paper and informed him that this was the king's decree, showing the royal seal on the letter. Daejong thought, orders from the king, huh? Is this part of the mission? The knight pointed out that he didn't get it directly from the king, but the royal seal is real. Their Majesty must have recognized the raid leader's abilities. Another knight asked him to open it quickly. Daejong grabbed the letter and opened it. This email is intended for squad leader of the Order of the White Bear. He is expected in a village near the borders of the kingdom, so he must go there before starting the mission. Daejong peered at the letter and read that he knew its secret. Daejong started to think, what could this be about? What was his secret? Why is he acting like this and talking about a secret that Daejong doesn't even know about? Judging from the fact that the quest didn't appear for these guys, even though they are also NPCs, he guesses that it will work in a village near the border. One of the knights asks what His Majesty wants? Daejong pushed his hair back and replied that he had asked them to defend the borders with pride and honor, and also he had high hopes for them. The swordsmen were surprised to hear these words and said that they expected nothing less from the raid leader. Daejong suggested that they do an equipment check before they set off, but before that, he would give them names. At this time, Sang-soo shouted to his soldiers to listen, that this is the very first dungeon that was discovered in Astrum. While everyone is still busy finding guild members to increase the success rate for the guild quest, they will practice working together as a team. Jelly My Fave said that there was no such dungeon in the beta, which other members agreed with. Another added that he definitely didn't remember seeing a dungeon of this type like this. Sang-soo said that this means it's a dungeon that even Daejong hasn't cleared out until now. He said this in embarrassment and pulled out his sword, then shouted for everyone to follow him. Jelly My Fave thought that every time Sang-soo opens his mouth, he always talks about Daejong and what he does. Sang-soo rushed to run into the forest, and the players who joined the guild were standing on the edge of the forest and discussing whether joining this guild was a good decision. They'll be fine, won't they? Jelly My Fave said that they didn't need to worry, because if they just helped this guy, everything would go well. Sang-soo ran out of the forest along with the flying rat monsters, shouting that it wasn't as easy as he thought. He asked them to be careful, suggesting that they catch the monsters first. Jelly My Fave shouts that this is his first battle after choosing a new role. First of all, they need to catch 3 mobs. The player plunged his shield into the ground in front of the monsters, and the rats rushed at him, but he repelled them with his shield. The player was surprised and said that it hurt more than he thought. A girl from their guild said that the level of monsters is higher than it looks, to which Jelly My Fave replied that then they just need to aim at one at a time. Sang-soo ran away and shouted that he could kill 3 of them. He started attacking the monsters with a slash, a basic swordsman skill, technique of jumping and using your own weight when attacking. The greater the weight, the greater the damage. Now it will show them raid leader's secret move, Fist from Hell. After that attack, he thought about how cool he was. At this time, Daejong says that they have now finished preparing. Squeaker sat on his shoulder and nodded along. They opened a portal and found themselves in a city near a huge fortress. The knight replied that it was true. Another knight added that since there is a border here, there is no choice but to build high walls. Daejong knocked on the stone wall and said that the stone should be big and heavy. One of the knights replied that it is so heavy that it is ideal for strength training. He added that the workers who built the walls had very powerful muscles. Daejong said, so that's how they know they came here to do the same thing, right? His subordinates were at a loss. Why are they surprised? He will give them a task, so they need to accept it. They ask in surprise, is he serious? The system window tells you to hire workers to repair the walls. The cracks in the walls, which the border villagers are so proud of, disturb the villagers. We need to hire workers to repair the border of the kingdom of Arthur. Daejong laughed and said he was just joking, they can't relax. When they recruit workers, they will fix everything right away. The knights saluted him and replied that they understood everything, to which Daejong said that they could relax and began to move away from them. The knight asks, where is he? Daejong looked at the stone wall where the dent had formed, and thought that such a dent would not just happen, so he is going to walk with this magician guy. They continued together along the high stone wall, and Daejong thought that since the intimacy with the 2 swordsmen had reached the maximum level, he should focus on this guy. Daejong asked if he had ever been to the border village. The magician got excited and replied that this was his first time. Daejong said that he didn't look surprised when he saw the wall, so he assumed that the magician hadn't seen it before. The magician replied that when he was in magic school, they often used magic to look at the border. Daejong replied that he understood and asked how long did he study there. The magician replied that the training took place for about 10 years. Now he left the school for the first time. Suddenly, Daejong grabbed the magician's hat and lifted it up, after which he saw that it was not a guy at all, but a girl with blonde hair. He asked her who she is, to which she replied, what is he talking about? The system window reports that the magician feels uncomfortable. The proximity has decreased by 5 units. The current friendship is -5. Daejong pulled out his sword and asked if she wanted to say that a person who went out for the first time in 10 years could be so calm. He asked her to confess while there was a chance, and repeated his question, "Who is she?" She took off her cloak and said that it was not for nothing that he had such a reputation. She had a polar bear badge with a crown on her chest, and she told him that there was no need to be so careful. She would like to ask him for cooperation. She is a polar bear knight. She is in a secret search party. She was tasked to find a traitor, so she joined the raid leader's group. After these words, she held out her hand to him and asked if he would help her. The system window reports that a quest related to the mission has been created. You need to find the traitor who hid in the border village. There is a traitor among the polar bear knights who discovered the strange tiger while investigating cracks in the walls, suspecting that there is an organized rebel force in the kingdom. We need to find the traitor by cooperating with a secret search team. Information about the magician will be updated. If he refuses, then he will become an enemy for the magician. Daejong thought, traitor? He grabbed her hand and agreed. The system window reports that his decision melted the heart of the sorceress. Affinity increased by 50 units, current friendship 45 units. She picked up the hoodie from the ground and asked if she should put it on again. He replied that she should put it on and return to patrol. He secretly glanced at her and thought that this girl seemed familiar to him. They started coming back and he asked her what clues there were about the traitor. She replied that after looking at the cracks, she could tell that it was a skill she had never seen before. She wanted to say something, but suddenly there was an explosion. After the explosion, monsters appeared right in front of the magician and Daejong, along with Squeaker. The magician girl says that the monster is not from here. She has never seen such monsters before. Daejong asks her if the cracks in the wall attracted them here. She began to conjure and replied that it looked like it. The monster let out a loud growl, and a huge purple OK grabbed him and started to squeeze his throat. A little earlier, the mage had said that after examining the cracks in the wall, she could tell that they were created with a skill they had no record of. She said it might be related to black magic. The monster began to growl, and a black haze appeared from its mouth, which filled the entire space. Daejong went on the attack and said that's who made the cracks in the wall. Daejong aimed his sword at the monster and pierced through his body. Squeaker at that time was behind Daejong. Daejong thought that the difficulty of the missions was picking up just when he wanted to relax. Squeaker got ready and the girl was surprised to see the flames coming from him. Suddenly, Squeaker and Daejong caught fire and decided to use as much force as possible. This is the raid leader merging skill and Squeaker. The mage looked at them in surprise. They attacked the monster together and flames began to appear from the Squeaker's mouth, which then poured onto the monster. The body of the monster was enveloped in flames, and the body of another monster was filled with flames and exploded. Squeaker skill, a fiery hedgehog, in which spikes of flame break out of fireballs with a certain duration. The magician stood in a daze as she watched what was happening. At this time, Sang-soo wandered through the forest and left marks on the trees. He could not believe that he was once again disappointed. He wandered and thought about the dungeon rat den and why it was so hard to impress him. Jelly My Fave came up behind him and said that there weren't many trees left and offered to finish it quickly. Sang-soo called him his dear squire and agreed with him. He pointed a finger at a tree behind him and offered to attack that tree over there. Guy thought, Squire, this child is in serious need of help. The archers fired at the tree and after hitting it, the monster rats crawled out. Sang-soo asked him to entrust it to him, and after these words, he quickly headed towards the tree. The guy said he was faster than he thought. Sang-soo tightened his grip on his sword, made his trademark swing and told the monster, just to let him know that he should be honored to meet him, after which he made several movements with his sword and was dumbfounded. The monster attacked him and he felt a severe pain in his stomach and cried out in pain. The monster attacked him again. Compared to this one, Squeaker is an angel. Sang-soo's face was scratched by the monster's claws as he thought about how strong this monster was. After the monster attacked Sang-soo, it landed and looked at the remaining players. The Sang-soo sword was stuck in the ground. Here lies a guy with 8th grader syndrome. At this time, another sword was stuck in the ground and Daejong grabbed it and wondered why there are so many of them. Squeaker squeaked his approval. Standing behind him was a mage girl who called out to the raid leader. He turned around and felt a familiar feeling. He remembered Yu Gyong, who called out to him. The magician shouted that this was the last skill, after which she waved her staff and made several movements, creating purple flames around her. Daejong remembered Yu Jong doing the same once. He shifted his gaze to the monster and the girl's magic began to restrain the monster. He smiled and thought that somehow he got the feeling that he was playing with Yu Jong. Besides, this girl looks like a perfect match with him, just like Yu Jong. He remembers talking to her, asking her to join the guild. They were sitting at a table in some establishment and drinking drinks. He said that she was the only one he could trust to run the guild. While they were sitting in such a cozy environment, she looked at her drink and replied that she did not want to be in the guild. She brushed a drop of water from her glass and said that she hated it when there were a lot of people. He handed her a napkin and said that was why he suggested she try it first. It's just a game anyway, and besides, the guild members will definitely like it. He said that for him the guild is like a family, but does it make sense without it? She took it hesitantly and said she understood. She dabbed her wet fingers with a napkin and in exchange asked him not to leave her alone. Now Daejong is standing and watching as the magician gives Squeaker magic stones, and wondered why he keeps thinking about Yugong. The sky was already filled with the bright colors of the sunset, and Daejong said that he had to return. Daejong, Squeaker, and the mage were walking down a long corridor. Daejong noticed Squeaker hugging a girl and said that this is the first time he sees him hugging someone other than him. She replied that he likes being a pet and is very smart, and his magic is good too. She said that he was eating the magic stone and asked if she could give him more. Daejong replied that she should do as she pleases. He thought about how she likes animals. She only talks about Squeaker. The girl asked where he found it, to which he replied that it seems that it was not far from the kingdom of Arthur. It seems that he is the boss of the Rat Cave dungeon. She asked, puzzled. Boss? Does he say he tamed the boss? Daejong confirmed her words. She stopped and asked him, does he use joint attacks with the former monster? Daejong replied that he did this for the first time and thought that it would not work. He started to open the door and said that it even sounds like something impossible. Daejong looked into the room in surprise, but suddenly he noticed something was wrong behind him. The magician blocked his path with her sword and said that she did not expect this, but it was him, the traitor. Squeaker, upon hearing these words, jumped up and opened his mouth in fright. He wanted to run away, but the magician grabbed him and told Daejong that they needed to talk. She bandaged Daejong's arms and body with her magic, but Squeaker started biting her arm, after which he fell to the ground with a squeak. Daejong laughed and asked if she thought he was a traitor. This is ridiculous. She led him into the room and the doors closed. At that time, Takwon was in a cave fighting a monster. He drew his sword from its scabbard and attacked the monster and cut off its tail. They had a fierce struggle. Blood was shed. Takwon took off and jumped towards the enemy. The monster growled, and Takwon's eyes lit up. He attacked the monster and cut it into pieces. He landed on the ground and his attack cracked the ground. The system reported an increase in the level. He looked up at the system window, which said that he reached level 35 for the first time. The system window asks if he wants to update his rating. Takwon refused. He thought that it was just level 35. Why would he care about the ranking? It wasn't enough to take the place of the raid leader or allay Yugong's fears. He remembered how she was going from side to side and worried. She looked at the map and said that this is a problem. The guild quest has begun. They should be the first guild to complete this quest. Charon asked how. They lost their guild name and raid leader. Yu Jong said that she was sure that during the quest you can make a big name for yourself again, but the lack of a raid leader cannot be fixed. Charon asked, but if there is no Daejong, then Takwon will be the next best, right? As he sits on a rock sharpening his blades, he thinks about how it took Yu-gyong a year to bond with the guild and bond with the rest of the members. Everyone is just waiting for the raid leader. Until Daejong returns, he must also change like Yu-gyong and the new guild. He must change a lot so that no one else can catch up with him. Sometime later, one of the knights said that the repair work is finished. Now that the task of repairing the walls is completed, it's time to return to the raid leader. The magician girl looked into the tent and the swordsmen were surprised at her appearance. She went inside and said that they needed to go back, to which one of the knights replied that they were just about to do it. He broke off when she showed them a piece of paper that had a picture of Daejong on it. She said that the raid leader was supposedly a traitor to the kingdom, but luckily no links were found between him and the two of them. They saw her badge and realized that this was a secret search party. She asked them to follow her to the Corps of Knights. The commander of the Polar Bear Knights has arrived. At this time, the commander of the Knights greeted Daejong and introduced himself. In front of him sat a bound Daejong, who said that he was quite polite. Squeaker was hiding behind the chair Daejong was sitting on. The knight commander laughed out loud and said that he had strong nerves, just like a traitor. Daijong had nothing to say to that and just sighed. The system window reports that the mission information has been updated. We need to find the traitor hiding in the border village. The Polar Bear Knights have declared the raid leader as a traitor. The Knight Commander arrived at the border village to confirm that he was a traitor. Daijong needs to prove his innocence to the commander of the Knights. The item Royal Decree became his property. Daijong lazily said that he didn't want it that much. The system window disappeared and he chuckled bitterly. While Squeaker was trying to break the magic chains, Daijong asked what convinced him that he was a traitor. The commander saw Squeaker and asked if he tamed the dungeon boss Ratcave. The commander said that he must have heard these stories, the legends of the kingdom, the legend of King Arthur, who founded the state and named it after himself. He asked, "Can I not explain further?" In the history of the kingdom, there was only one person who tamed the boss. It was King Arthur. But was he able to tame the monster too? Even if it's just a rumor, it's disrespectful to say that now that he's seen it all with his own eyes, what proof of infidelity is needed? After these words, he took out a sword, threatened Daijong with it, and asked again if he needed another reason. Daijong sighed and asked if he was jealous. He is called a traitor for such a pathetic reason. If he is jealous, why can't he say so directly? The commander brought the sword even closer and angrily said that he was crazy. After these words, Daijong saw the commander's sword quickly approach him and pierce his chest. Daijong began to scream in pain. Daijong's health almost dropped to the bare minimum. The commander of the Knights gave him his hard look. Daijong realized that he was dangerous, much more dangerous than he thought. He thought it looked like he was more than just a squad leader. The commander of the Knights again inflicted a serious injury on Daijong. A system window appeared in front of him, which informed him that Daijong had received serious damage. Additional stimulation could cause dysfunction in his body. Daijong thought that at this rate, he would die. Seeing what was happening, Squeaker rushed to Daijong's defense and spewed out flames to attack the commander. The commander said that this is what he calls loyalty. For a traitor, he definitely has a charm. Squeaker squeaked and wanted to strike, but suddenly he fell down. The commander believes that the magic stone, which he was fed by a magician girl named Hein, is starting to work. He drew a sword from Daijong, approached Squeaker. He extended his hand to him and said that now he will become his new master. Daijong thought that now he should stop the Knight Commander. He didn't think he would have to use it. He took the runestone and summoned Guy Lime. Guy Lime appeared above the commander, and Daijong ordered him to break everything. Guy Lime swung his weapon and attacked the commander. The magic dissipated and Daijong was able to move again. He reached into his bag with his hand and told the commander that he could forgive bullying him, but how dare he bully his kid? He took out a glowing orb from his pocket. The system window said 5 uses left. He used the item and the number of uses changed. An item appears in front of Daijong, the zookeeper's belt. The system window reports that this item has 4 uses left. At this time, Charon, Dagyong, Yugyong, and Flicker find themselves in the palace. Charon is surprised by the huge yard and asks, "Is there no one here?" Dagyong assumes that they are here first. Yugyong angrily asks why hasn't Takwon come yet. A palace guard approached them and asked if they were here to get a guild quest. Yuzhong confirmed his words and asked how many participants can register. The guard replies that 5 people can register. To apply, you need to write the name of the guild and representatives. To avoid any problems, representatives must apply in person. The system window announces the guild quest. The Kingdom of Arthur is looking for outstanding warriors. A tournament will be held to find the future knights of the kingdom. Every Astrom user can take part in it. All candidates will receive Kingdom Merit points after accepting the major challenge. It is necessary to select 5 representatives from the guild to prepare for the upcoming martial arts tournament. The order does not matter, but participants must apply in person. Yuzhong repeated, should they apply in person? Since Takwon wasn't there, she became very worried, because the most important person still hadn't come. At this time, Daijong fights against the commander along with Squeaker and Gilime. He says that he tried to solve everything with his quick wits, after which he touched Gilime with his hand, and Gilime's muscle battery skill activated. Daijong grabbed his fire sword and said that they would talk after he put the commander on the ground. The system window said that he could charge his muscles are like batteries. His strength and physical skills will be increased for a while. He pointed his sword at the commander and yelled to end this at once. The commander said he wanted to know one thing. Could he answer his question? Daijong asked why he should do this. Why did he suddenly become interested in a traitor? The commander said that if he did not want to answer, then let him at least listen to his story first. He healed himself and asked if he had ever been betrayed by someone he trusted the most. the one he trusted more than anyone else. Daejong noticed his ability and thought, does the NPC have the ability to regenerate? Or maybe it's black magic? The commander looked at his palm and said that his life was full of betrayals. Every time he was just healed in this way, but recently even his subordinate who swore allegiance threatened him just like him. The commander clenched his hand into a fist and rushed to the attack. Daejang had a sword in his hand and he asked who did he call underlings. From now on he will obey him. Daejong swung his fire sword and activated strengthened skill, Muscle Strike, the swordsman's basic skill. Power Strike has been enhanced with Muscle Recharge. The commander said that there was some kind of force in it. Their swords began to crack from these attacks. They need to continue. The commander asked how Daejong thinks he did to them. Daejong clenched his hand into a fist and swung to strike, activating the Guy Lime-linked skill, Muscle Punch. Gather all the energy from Muscle Recharge and release it in one punch. During this battle, the commander said that he had sacrificed them, to which Daejong replied that no one asked this freak. He starts punching the commander all over his body with fiery fists, causing him to fall to the ground. Daejong yells that he should be running away, not running his mouth, stupid. Daejong has leveled up many times over. This took longer than he expected, and he yelled at the squeakers that it was time for them to leave. The commander asked if he was not interested in what they were victims for. Black smoke was coming from him, and he said that a new power would appear soon. At that moment, the doors open and the knights and mage rush in. They shout, "Raid leader!" The magician saw what was happening and took out her weapon, after which Daejong shouted to the soldiers to suppress the magician. The knights shouted to him that he would not pass and blocked the way. What a mess. The commander turned into a huge sinister monster, who said that the putrefactive stench had penetrated here too. Meanwhile, Tak Guan stood in front of the robed people. One of them said that he had heard that he was silent, but he did not expect him to be just like a Buddha stone. Tak Guan remained silent, and the man in the robe said that there was nothing funny about such a kidnapping. He used his power and a magic rune appeared underneath him. Tak Guan shifted his weapon around and asked, "Kidnapping?" At the same moment, green chains with blades at the ends flew towards the people, and they stuck into two people. Tak Guan dexterously controlled his weapon, and the guy in the robe charged and shouted that he was a jerk. Tak Guan stopped the chains and jerked them back sharply. The guy in the robe turned around and the chains hit him on the back. From the blow, he dropped to one knee, but the shield on his back did not allow him to suffer. He asked, "Is he going alone against the seven? Is he crazy?" He used his magic and flames crept up to Tak Guan's feet. He managed to jump back in time and asked if they are the ABC Guild from Rue Online. The guy took off his hood and asked how about they team up before the guild quest ends. They cannot lose to a guild that does not have a raid leader. At this time, the commander of the knights turned into a monster and said that there is a mess. This stench has also penetrated here. He threw aside his armor and sword and said that he would give them some useful information. The armor and sword hit the floor with a clang, and the monster said that he was the boss monster from the myth of the founder. The system window said the job was created based on the detection of the guardian deity. King Arthur was the only one on the continent who was able to found a country by taming the boss monster, the guardian deity of the vanished kingdom. He needs to defeat a mysterious guardian who has somehow reappeared. Daejong picked up the armor and said that he didn't know how strong he was back then, but he was sure he was quite strong. He asked if they were sure he would win if he took advantage of it. Should he fight him like a boss? He examined the sword and wondered if that would be too much. He noticed purple flashes behind him and turned around. He saw how the magician girl began to conjure and magic shells hit Guylime. He asked what kind of monsters. The knights attacked her and exclaimed how dare she attack the raid leader. The girl said that now is not the time to fight each other. Daejong said that as far as she could see, the knight commander had turned into this monster. And Gilliam is his subordinate. Who to believe? The decision is hers. Will she choose the monster pretending to be the commander of the knights, or him who was accused of betrayal? The girl was confused and didn't know what to say. Daejong told her to think carefully. Let her not stop him from catching the boss. He grabbed his sword and rushed to attack along with the fiery Squeaker. They approached the monster, and Squeaker began to attack it with fiery projectiles. The monster repelled the attack and said that they seemed to be still close. Smoke began to come from his paw, and he asked how long he thought it would last. Daejong started attacking him, and the monster said that if he survived his attack, he would tell him his story. He swung his claws, and at that moment Daejong grabbed the Squeaker and dodged the monster's blow. Daejong yelled that he already said he didn't care at all. Squeaker squeaked and warned him that he was starting to burn. Daejong said it's okay, he can't stop the flames. He thought it was dangerous, one hit and he would be dead. The monster attacked again and said that Arthur never tamed it. Daejong pushed Squeaker forward and the raid leader's fusion skill with Squeaker activated. Squeaker unleashed a powerful stream of flames, flamethrower skill, absorbs the aura of the raid leader and releases incredibly hot flames. This can block melee attacks. The power of the monster and the stream of flame touched and began to resist each other. After a few seconds, everything was quiet. Daejong took Squeaker in his arms and said that since he was still talking, he would ask him a question. Does he mean to say that he was slandered or something like that? The monster asked if he was finally interested in him. He confirmed his words and said that at first they were bound by a contract. As a condition of helping people in war, he accepted the price of human sacrifice. Daejong said he thought he didn't keep his promise and asked if he was still angry about it. The monster said it wasn't. Having tasted blood, he could not stop the war. Humanity is dying like flies. Why do they need a victim? Arthur wanted peace and said that he would sacrifice himself to end the bloodshed, which is why he took possession of his body. More precisely, Arthur himself took the body of the monster. The knights and the mage were greatly surprised. Arthur looked at his paw and said that they probably guessed what happened next. The monster, unlike him, who was weak and old, continued to conquer and fight. He wants to destroy this kingdom that has grown up on the blood-soaked land. The bloodline of this cursed kingdom will be destroyed by his own hands. He wounded his paw with a claw and said that he wanted to repeat what he had previously said to his proud knights. Who to believe? The decision is his. He asked if he would become a traitor and help him, or would he protect the interests of the kingdom? The system reported that the royal event was activated. The scenario of the next task depends on the choice made. King Arthur, who lived his life in injustice, gathers all his strength in order to overthrow the power in the kingdom. Will he help this man to accomplish his revenge? The rewards and difficulty of the quest cannot be estimated. Daejong said he almost forgot and asked if he could ask one more question. Was he really betrayed? Arthur did not answer. Daejong grabbed his paw and said that he was the one who started the war, and also he was the one who survived. He remembered his words that he made a sacrifice and said that it was he who sacrificed and still sacrifices human lives. Arthur yanked his paw out of his hand and said it was funny. He looked down at his wound and said that opportunities like this don't come along very often. His wound healed, and Daejong said that the wound was deep, so he did everything slowly. He drank the potion and said that Arthur was the first to propose and asked why he keeps resisting. He took out his sword and repeated once more that he was a subordinate. He used a special wizard skill, Double Charge, which allows you to use two skills at the same time. He walked towards Arthur and used the raid leader's exclusive skill, a bullet lunge that delivers a stabbing blow enhanced by fire and frost auras. Arthur also prepared to attack and struck. Their powers collided and Arthur was surprised, because the aura enveloping the Daejong weapon increased the damage on impact. Arthur was knocked back from a strong blow, and the magician girl was surprised. Did he use a double charge? Meanwhile, Sung Soo stands in the middle of an arena filled with spectators. He clenched his hand into a fist and thought it was incredible. The tournament organizers announced that if the opponent did not arrive on time, Sung Soo would be automatically declared the winner of the final qualifier for the royal tournament. He straightened his hair, chuckled, and said that apparently his opponent had shit in his pants and fled. He abruptly stopped his hand and thought that he almost ruined his hair. He shouted that apart from the raid leader, he is the best here. No wonder he was so scared. Yujong sighed tiredly and nervously and said that this idiot is even here talking about the commander. Charon laughed and said that he was really funny and asked if he took the name of their guild, right? Yujong confirmed her words and asked, but why is she the only one who is embarrassed here? Flicker got up abruptly and yelled that he was a jerk. How dare such a scum talk about their leader? Just let him get to him and he will finish him off. She thought that there was another fan of the commander. It looks like he's having a hard time. The spectators were surprised and looked at a man in a robe and with a staff in his hands, who was approaching the center of the arena. He tapped his staff and an image of the king appeared. One of the spectators admiringly said that this is the king. The king said that he welcomed all the guests and inhabitants of the kingdom of Arthur. Relatively recently, their country has become the victim of a series of unpleasant incidents, and therefore, to strengthen the position of the royal family, he wants to hire a squad of brave knights. The members of the guild that will be the last one to win the tournament will receive the title of commanders and their army. In addition, they will be given their own territory. He began to disappear and wished everyone good luck. The audience roared with delight. At this time, Dejong was fighting a monster. From the blow, Arthur whimpered in pain, and Dejong said that by his stamina you couldn't tell that he was the boss. He used the aura shift skill, which quickly moves the aura actively. He attacked him and said, "What does that mean? He really is not one. This is his last warning." From a strong blow, Arthur was thrown back for some distance. Dejong pointed his sword in his direction and plunged right next to Arthur's head. He pressed the blade to his throat and they looked into each other's eyes. Dejong said that he would become his subordinate. After a short pause, Arthur asked if he wished him to relinquish his power. Exactly how it happened 100 years ago, Dejong confirmed his words and said that then he would be able to avenge him, but with his own method. Arthur pushed the sharp blade away from his throat and gripped it tighter. He gripped the blade with such force that he hurt his paw and asked what he wanted from him. Dejong replied that he needed loyalty and honesty. After a short pause, Arthur said that it was easy, it was acceptable. Dejong removed the sword from his throat and placed it on his hand. He cut his hand and said it was the right decision. They shook bloodied hands and Dejong told him that from now on, let him be obedient. The system window reported that there was a situation where the selection options are not available. The kingdom events have been updated. He needs to take a blood oath to King Arthur. In retaliation for becoming the boss monster, he must destroy Arthur's kingdom. This mission cannot be abandoned. Dejong said they will discuss the details later. He looked at the magician and said that there was something else that he had yet to deal with. The girl was very surprised and thought, what did she just see? Dejong approached her and said that he would not repeat it to her either. He put the sword on her shoulder and asked if she would follow him, the master of the true king, or would she be betrayed by the monster bloodline? She dropped her sword and grabbed the bear badge and ripped it off her chest and threw it aside. She asked, did she think there was no point in divulging the answer? The badge hit the floor with a clang and steps were heard in the direction of this. He picked up the badge and said he liked its simplicity. Let her keep it. It will be needed in the future. She asked, what about his wounds? He sheathed his sword and replied that everything was in order. He thought that he could die. He needs to become stronger, become even stronger and bring chaos. Meanwhile, in the final round, Flicker thought of Sung Soo. It's obvious that he's a real otaku. He stopped and sped forward. He attacked and thought he wouldn't let a guy like that defile the leader's name. He looked at his rival and thought he was finished. The man almost went off the edge of the arena and thought he was strong. Flicker approached him and looked him straight in the eyes. He hit him on the forehead and the man fell over the edge of the arena. Flicker bowed to him and said he appreciated his diligence. His name is Go Haken. He is the National Youth Champion. He is the number 5 of the former Endgame Boss Guild. Meanwhile, Dejong was standing in the middle of the room and Squeaker looked at him questioningly and squeaked, what is he doing? The system window said that he had defeated a rare monster. The quest is completed. The reward will be credited soon. The new title for defeating the historical monster will soon be recreated. Its reputation has increased by 1,000 points. A chest with a reward appeared in front of him, and he said that it was even a little disappointing. The quests are more difficult and he's making good progress, but he's only getting 1 reward? He opened the chest and saw an A-grade space rune there. It has 3 skills. The jump skill is able to instantly cover a short distance. The teleport skill gives the ability to instantly move to a long distance in which this runestone is located. The subspace passive skill grants the ability to use space magic to create basic stats. Dejong said he was lucky. He noticed that there are several more items. The Blade of the Knights of the Polar Bears has an offensive power of 150 units, physical and magical attack, 110%, durability 300 out of 300 units. This sword adds 33 points to strength, agility, and critical damage. The commander of the Polar Bear Knights used this sword for a long time. It has been preserved in excellent condition. The sword is imbued with magical energy, and its abilities are sealed. The next item is the Polar Bear Knight Armor, which has 450 defensive power, 120% physical attack, and 100% magic attack. Durability 450 out of 450 units. This armor adds 2,200 points to health and magic attack, adds 44 points to magic resistance, and adds 22 points to fortitude. This armor can only be worn by a knight. It creates a protective aura around the commander of the Polar Bear Knights. A full set of armor was given to him when he became commander. The armor is imbued with magical energy and its abilities are sealed. Dejong thought these items had pretty good stats since the previous owner was a knight commander. Either way, he's glad the items are filled with magic. He turned towards Arthur and thought that this guy ate the previous commander, but became obedient after he gave him the item. Squeaker yelled at Arthur and Dejong took notice. So that's how it is? The system window reported that the current number of creatures had reached 3. The conditions were met, the caretaker's pocket was upgraded to Fina's belt. The system window said that Fina's belt has a rank of C. This item was obtained by completing the quest. This item adds 150 points to defense, 27 points to intelligence, 18 points to resistance. This is the last item of the summoning creature in the Kingdom of Arthur. The creature will become submissive immediately after putting on this belt. After all characteristics, health, and magical energy of the owner's creature will be restored. When the number of creatures increases to 5, the item will be upgraded. Daejong was surprised by so many useful items, and thought that now that all of his items are sorted, should they go back to their pending cases? Meanwhile, at the tournament, Sung-Soo fought a mage. Sung-Soo said that he should be honored to face him in the second round. The magician dodged the blow and said that it was so pitiful, it seemed to him that they were similar, but he still had to learn and learn. Sung-Soo said he's the only one pathetic here. The magician repelled his blow and said that the magician who would have substituted himself for such a slow blow does not exist. He hit him and blood came out of his nose. The magician said he knew it would turn out like this. Whether it be skills or perversity, if he tries to keep up with him, then he is away for another 30 years. Sung-Soo brandished his sword and said that he was already fed up with his provocations. He will get what he deserves. Saying these words, he threw his sword at him. The magician quickly reacted and dodged, but Sung-Soo had already bared his stomach and charged. He hit the magician with his stomach, and from the blow he flew off several meters. Sung-Soo took off and said, "It's not over yet." He did somersaults and used his exclusive skill, tearing the internal organs under terrible pressure, a technique of jumping on the opponent from above, and then suppressing with his own weight. The magician wanted to say something, and Sung-Soo asked if he had already admitted defeat. He attacked him and said that the only one he could lose to was the raid leader. At this time, Daejong ordered his subordinates to stand in 2 columns. He called the monster Kola, the magician girl, Hein. He said Kola sounded good, but Hein didn't fit. He opened the stat window and asked why her level had increased. She sheepishly replied that it was her original ability. Since she had to hide as an ordinary soldier, her magic changed. Daejong asked in surprise, "Is this possible?" so he can make good use of it. He put his hand on her shoulder and said that in that case her name would be Genie. Squeaker laughed and the system window said that the conditions were met. Now he can organize subordinate creatures. To do this, he needs to go to the appropriate window. Does he want to start learning? Daejong agreed and thought he should give it a try. He found himself in an empty space and asked if he was here again. The system window reported that he had entered subordinate creature organization mode. At the moment, only creatures and classes are represented. He can set 2 classes. The system reported the arrangement of creatures. Daejong looked at it and said it looks like a real strategy sim. He pointed to Squeaker and wondered what name he should give this class. An idea came to his mind, and he chose Private First Class for Squeaker. He laughed and said, if he has a class, then only the military PFC for Squeaker. He burst into laughter and set the rest of the private class. He divided them into 2 groups, said that now it is more like a squad. The system window said that the placement of the creatures is completed. The highest class will automatically be determined by the leader of the group. Subordinate creature organization training completed. He returned from empty space and the system announced the task. Protecting the borders of the Kingdom of Arthur. He did not complete the second point of the mission. Daejong told the knights and Genie that they can advance to the kingdom first. Tarzan exclaimed that their task was to defend the border. Daejong replied that he would stay behind and take care of it, and let them go and report the traitor. He said they could just say that he was the traitor. He took out a runestone and said that later they would need to tell him everything that happened there. He would take care of the rest himself. He asked if they understood everything. They agreed, and Daejong asked Gloomy and Kola to take care of the monsters near the fortress wall. Kola asked what he was up to. It seems to him too hasty a decision. Daejong called out to Squeaker and angrily asked, did he not raise him? Does he dare to call himself a private first class after that? Squeaker saluted him and ran towards Kola. He hit him and started cursing. Daejong said they were his subordinates. Let them just do as he says. Everything has already been thought out. They just have to fulfill their tasks, and it will be the finishing touch. Meanwhile, the third round began. Sung-Soo defeated another opponent. Haken also continued to win. Round 4 began. They both continued to win. Round 5 started. Sung-Soo defeated the opponent and fixed his hair. Haken won again and smirked. Began the final round. Sung-Soo stood in front of another opponent's. They looked at each other and Sung-Soo said that he was very sorry for him, because the enemy of his idol is his enemy. May he accept it with honor. The man asked if they hadn't seen each other before. At a glance, it is clear that he is an ordinary crypto scammer. How dare he talk to adults like that? Sung Su's face twisted in disgust, and he said he was a vile ignoramus. He moved quickly and told him to see his superiority. He extended his hand forward, and a large blue hand flew towards the man. It was a Sung Su exclusive skill that hits the target with a huge palm and immobilizes them for 30 seconds. A large hand approached the man, but at the last moment he grinned and erected a stone barrier in front of him. Sung Su said that he should defend himself like a guild number 2. He attacked and said that such protection is not enough. Sung Su's blow took half of the man's health, and he thought, why such a strong damage? Sung Su swung his hand and said that apparently he still did not understand this. He attacked him and said that it was because he was terribly cool. At this time, Sung Su's victory was shown on the screen in the observation room. Yu Zhong angrily said that first they locked Ta Quan in prison, and now they are going to send him to war. They knew he couldn't use chat or any skill, which means they did it on purpose. She leaned back in her chair and said that his victory over the ABC Guild was quite beautiful. She sighed and asked if she should be happy about it or not. Dagyong said that this Sung Su is pretty good. It may seem like he got lucky in the finals, but the ABC Guild is going through a difficult situation right now. She turned to Yu Zhong and said that he has talent. She looked at her, and Yu Zhong said that he managed to defeat the ABC Guildmaster, but she was not sure about his ability. She started biting her nail and said that he was one thing, but she was more annoyed by the fact that Ta Quan was locked up in a dungeon, and because of this, her plans to use the strongest member in the final round failed with a crash. Dagyong looked at her, and a message appeared in front of them from Ta Quan saying that he would deal with the ABC Guild. The second battle of the final round began. Haken bowed to the girl and wished her good luck. She admiringly said that it was Mr. Flicker. After watching his string of victories, she became his fan. She is honored to meet him. He looks even cooler up close. He smiled awkwardly and thanked her. The admiring smile on her face was replaced by an unkind smirk, and she said that, nevertheless, the game is a game. She coated the blade with poison and said that she would not be lenient with him. He thought it was such a relief. He held his sword out before him and thought he almost said he would fight with honor. His sword sparkled, and he thought that if she played giveaway, she would lose too quickly. For critical damage, he will aim for the neck. This is quite possible. The girl rushed to the attack, and Haken thought that he needed a moment when she stopped using the skill. The girl ran towards him, but suddenly began to slow down. Haken noticed this and attacked. He made his move. The impact sent the girl flying away. Haken's exclusive skill is a flickering shot that pierces with the power and precision of a firearm. It deals damage to the opponent's weak points. After using the skill, a cooldown is required. He defeated the girl with one blow, and applause was heard. He smiled smugly and thought it was a good hit. He turned around to see the reaction of the organizers, but saw a purple flash. Daejong's subordinates came out of the portal. They were very serious. Haken's ears turned red, and he thought that he had an important process here. Meanwhile, at IG Soft, Zhou Yonbi was typing furiously on the keyboard. He said things would get worse at this rate. Something is obviously wrong. In this situation, if he dies in the game, then he risks dying in real life. Data related to the raid leader is not yet available. He's not sure, but it's possible he's using an electrical stimulation system that's only been tested as a last resort. There are no problems with other players, but with the raid leader, everything is more difficult. He printed out the documents and thought that it was risky to turn off the electrical stimulation system because you could die while in the game. So the only exhalation is later in the president's office. Zhou Yonbi gave him the documents and waited for him to read it. He said that's why they should make an announcement that the raid leader is alive. After a short pause, the president looked at him and said that then he had one proposal. He threw the documents on the table and said that he was offering him a 3-fold salary increase. Let him get the maintenance staff of the raid leader and form a team to find the bug, and he'll triple his salary until this incident gets out. Zhou Yonbi asked why they should be from the maintenance team. The president replied that by creating a separate team for the raid leader of only 4 people, this should minimize the possibility of a leak if a problem was later discovered. He dialed the HR team number and asked, so what was he going to do some time ago? Daejong stands in the middle of the library and says that there is nothing special about this building. It looks like this place has been abandoned for a long time. He took a book from the shelf and wondered, but why is there no dust at all? He wondered if it was possible that someone was thinking the same things as him. He opened the book and thought, maybe there is something here. It must be so because the mission is especially strange this time, even after the mission to protect the borders. He thought it was the end of the traitor's mission, but he was recognized as a fake knight commander by the boss of the mobs, as well as the fact that he is the real king of the kingdom, Arthur. Even though he has a soul swap, he is not as strong as normal bosses. He doesn't even have to fight, even if he defeats him. Nothing will change. Squeaker caught on the book and started to fall, but Daejong caught him and thought he couldn't believe that the border defense mission was just to kill time. They must want something from him. He put Squeaker on the shelf and he began to read the book. Daejong looked at him with a smile and said that he would kick his ass if he just sat and read. Squeaker looked at him in fear and squeaked. Daejong thought that Squeaker's stats should increase due to his hobbies like books and magic stones. Although he is frustrated that he cannot see his status window, he hit his palm with his fist and asked, "He said he would make him a weapon, didn't he?" He called up the system window and said that he would make him a sword first. He uses magic stones, praying mantis blades, and a compression ring. He will make a sword out of the things he collected during the Guylime mission. He wondered if he could combine the 3 magic stones, right? He started to combine items and said it would work somehow. The golden inlays on the floor suddenly lit up and began to sparkle, and the next moment there was an explosion. The room was filled with smoke and dust. Squeaker and Daejong lay on the floor and Daejong said it was a good try, and he apologized to Squeaker. Squeaker shifted his gaze to the sparkling orb in Daejong's hand. An unusual blue sphere sparkled in his hand. At this time, 3 of his subordinates arrived at the tournament. The captain of the guard asked what they were doing here. He looked at them puzzled and Genie put up a magical barrier. The captain of the guard asked if this was a barrier. Tarzan told him that a traitor had appeared in the border village, so they returned first. The captain of the guard asked in surprise, "What? Traitor?" Genie confirmed his words and said that it looks like he made the cracks on the wall. Unregistered monsters were summoned. He also used black magic. The captain of the guard asked, but why did he show up in the border village if the king was in the capital? Tuilette replied that to some extent, they still don't know. They returned immediately after the walls were repaired. The captain of the guard took out a scroll of teleportation and said that he first needed to report this to the king, and they would go with him. There was a bright flash, and they disappeared. A man in a robe walked to the middle of the arena and said that they had a little hitch, but everything would go according to plan now. The crowd cheered, and the robed man began to introduce the contestants. He pointed to Haken and said that it was the representative of the final boss guild, Flicker. He pointed to the opposite side of the arena and said that it was the guildmaster of the endgame boss guild, Sung-Soo. He slammed his staff on the floor and said that just like in the previous match, all levels, stats, and item abilities would be set to level 30. He wished them a good match and disappeared. Hachen told Sung-Soo that he is someone who has nothing to do with their leader. Ever since he heard that he was using his fame for his own gain, he made sure he never opened his mouth again. He used the electric aura skill, which condenses and releases thunder magic power. Sung-Soo chuckled, and said that he seemed to feel the aura of the raid leader emanating from him. Even if he was jealous of him, it was all a foregone conclusion. He used the warm-up skill, which increases attack by stimulating the muscles, and began to rotate his arm rapidly. They attacked each other while using their skills at the same time. Haken used the Sword of Speed skill, which delivers a quick blow to the opponent. Sung-Soo used the Sword of Gravity skill, a quick swing towards the opponent. Their swords clashed, and Haken thought his sword was heavier than he thought, and faster too. If he made a mistake, he would be pushed back. He attacked him first, but he survived. He jumped back and thought, "It's not that easy. Isn't it too burdensome?" Sung-Soo shouted that he would show him his strong side. He used the bulk-up skill, which instantly increases muscle and fat mass, allowing him to gain more explosive strength. He braced himself and said it was just like the raid leader, Forged Toughness. Let him test his physical strength called Very Cool Spiral Kick King Emperor God. This Sung-Soo exclusive skill allows him to quickly spin in a circle while swinging his sword. This causes great damage to the opponent. Haken dodged the blow, looked at his sword, and said that he was just a brat who was just copying others. He used the skill on guard, thanks to which an aura surrounds his body, increasing agility and brute strength. He prepared himself and said that the raid leader also has the power of mind. He attacked using the Thunderstrike skill. This is an attack that is fast as lightning, inflicts massive damage to the opponent. Sung-Soo's spin produced smoke. They were about to tear each other to shreds. But suddenly a man in a robe appeared and told them to stop fighting. An emergency has occurred. Haken and Sung-Soo looked at him in surprise. The man in the robe knelt down and said that the king had declared the two of them the winners. A system window appeared above them, announcing that the king of the kingdom, Arthur, had been killed by an unknown entity. With this sad news, it is no longer necessary to choose a guild to protect the king. In order to congratulate the representatives of both guilds for working so hard, the captain of the guard who manages the competition invited both guilds to the royal palace. They need to contact the captain of the guard to collect their rewards. Some time ago, Daejong inspected the sphere and thought that the item had been successfully crafted, but what was that explosion? He thought it was definitely magic. Suddenly, Tarzan's voice was heard from the runestone, who announced that something bad had happened. While they are talking, unregistered monsters are attacking the kingdom. Daejong was horrified and thought that this is not what he thinks. Tarzan says that the king looks like he was killed a long time ago, and there is a magic circle next to the throne. The monsters must have been summoned with this magic circle. Daejong whispers something back and realizes that this was it. This item reacted to magic and created a magic circle in the palace. A system window pops up in front of him with a mission. Daejong says he's had this feeling for quite a while now, but he always passes out before it gets him anywhere. The system notifies that after the completion of the mission, the summoners were called. Kola asks, did he send him to work alone? What could he do if the magicians were already activated? Daejong and Squeaker looked at each other. Squeaker ran up to Kola and kicked him in the leg, calling him a jerk. Kola says that these people will go this way. This is the magic circle he guarded. Kola asks that if they come, then he should not be rude. At this time in the building of the guild ABC, the guy says he always stays away from really good raids. After these words, a blade on a chain thrown by Tak Guan hits him. The other guy screams his name and draws his sword, but is immediately stabbed by Tak Guan. Around the corner stood two more people who are surprised by the attack. Tak Guan masterfully defeats two members of the guild, and this is noticed by a man who runs screaming to help his comrades. Tak Guan uses the basic swordsman skill, 3-step cut. This is a quick cut 3 times, almost the same as with a dagger. Tak Guan uses Flicker's special skill chain cut. This skill allows you to combine magical powers with a chainsword. After defeating the man, Tak Guan lands and asks, did he say they went on a raid? At that time, before Daejong, a system window appears in which it says that the mission was completed successfully. Additional rewards will be issued for completing hidden missions. The status window can be viewed. He can also view the details of summoned creatures and soldiers in the command and control section. Daejong asks to wait. The system window says that in order to start a new mission, he will be moved to a new location. Daejong is pulled into a teleporter and he moves to a new location. Daejong refuses and says they should have at least let him finish his sentence. He now has a summon stone and uses it immediately when his cooldown ends. Daejong sighs and says that this time he will take care of him with an open heart, and asks to open the status window. A system window appeared in front of him, in which it is written that his combat power is 37850, level 72, prestige points 2866. The title of Daejong is the Lord of Historical Monsters. His strength is 130 points, agility 135 points, intelligence 129 points, also physical strength 51 points, endurance 71 points, magic 51 points, learning 52 points, subspace 1. This is the beginning of learning. Statistics increase by accumulating points based on actions. Individual statistics cannot be displayed. The user can determine the distribution of experience points by setting the weights in the base statistics. Moreover, items and runes can gain additional weight. The user can receive hidden statistics depending on their actions. Hidden stats can be created using items and runes. The user's abilities will be automatically analyzed and converted into combat power. Only combat strength will be displayed if another user checks the status window with a skill or discovery task. Daejong, looking at this, says that everything remains the same as in the beta testing phase, and this is very good. Squeaker runs forward a little and gestures to ask why he's not using a sphere. Daejong says he forgot about it when the other guy spoke up. Now they will see if this area is well done. He passes the orb to Squeaker and it shrinks to fit in his hands. The system window says that this item is a raid leader's orb with no class. Attack power is 100 points, increases physical attack by 100%, magic attack by 120% and has no durability, also adds 36 points to intelligence and 3,600 points to magic power. This is a magical tool crafted by the raid leader himself. For the full use of the sphere, special conditions must be met. Squeaker thinks he might lose it if he carries it around. He should be kept in a safe place, which is his cap. He hides the orb under his cap and thinks he's a genius. Daejong notices the huge amount of dust being created by the blue goblins running at them. The system window notifies that he used secret methods to complete a hidden mission, and for this his rewards will be increased. Grade A Resurrection Branch Bundle, 5 consumable item. Can be used to harness strong energy that does not exist in this world to revive the dead. Cannot be used on the same person. The second item is an unknown key with no score. This is a key that responds to a certain magical power. The third item is Grade A Spirit Bottle, which is a rechargeable item with 3 charges that recharge every 3 hours. This bottle will fill up with liquid spiritual energy at regular intervals. It can be used to erase anything. Daejong is about to take the items, but is run over by a mob of goblins who ignore him. Daejong collects items and asks what this time. This irritates him very much. Other goblins run by. Daejong stops the goblins as he puts the items back in his inventory and asks, why is he so annoying? If he has a mission, then he can just give it to him. The goblins looked at him in bewilderment and ran on. Daejong's ears turn red and he asks if he's going to do anything. Then why did he bring it here? He didn't let him finish his coke. 30 minutes later. Squeaker spins on his back while Daejong sits and thinks that getting stuck in the astrum is his biggest problem. 10 minutes later. Squeaker is putting together a house of cards, and Daejong thinks that as a Korean and a player, he should always have a way to get away even in the worst scenarios. After 1 minute. Daejong hopes it's not that he's really doing nothing. In a few moments, Daejong starts laughing out loud and kicks the ground hard and asks that stupid artificial intelligence to stop messing around and just give him a mission already. Some time ago, Tarzan says that the monsters must be summoned through this magic circle. Daejong says that they should tell the guard commander that he is a traitor for now. He will help them get rid of the monsters. Tarzan says he understands and asks the raid leader to be safe. Genie notices that a monster has appeared behind them, which was able to break through the barrier. Tarzan and 2 Elite strike at the monster. Genie says it's black magic and her defensive magic won't work. 2 Elite and Tarzan say she can leave it up to them and keep calling. Genie says that she understood them and removed the barrier, behind which stood several more monsters. Guys think there are too many of them. From behind their backs, several magical waves swept past, hitting one of the monsters. The man says they should all step back. The guard commander releases several magical waves and asks what they want to tell him. Genie throws off her cape and says that she is a member of the Polar Bear Knights search party. As a result of a secret investigation, they confirmed that the traitor was the commander of the Border Defense Knights. He tamed the monster boss and even integrated his skills. Tuilette and Tarzan wonder if the raid leader will be okay. The commander of the guards says that they should immediately return to the Polar Bear Knights and report the situation. Sometime later to the ABC Guild building. Charon says that Takwon are really scary when they get angry. Dagyong says he destroyed them. Yujong asks where did he go after he trashed everything like that. Charon says that knowing him is only the beginning. Dagyong says things are getting out of control. They need to meet with the ABC Guildmaster and settle things once and for all. Yujong asks if she really thinks they can stop Takwon. She doesn't think they should stop him. Charon asks how they can stop him in a fit of rage when even the raid leader couldn't do it. Dagyong asks what she means by saying they don't have to stop him. At the same time, a group of players see Takwon. One of the guys does not even have time to say something and gets hit by him. Someone asks where did he come from. Takwon throws both of his swords at the people as he grabs the chain and starts spinning. He jumps and, pulling his sword, strikes at another player. One of the players tells the other that he must shoot him. The player fires the crossbow, but Takwon pulls the sword and the arrow hits their ally. The player with the axe runs towards him and strikes, but Takwon dodges, counterattacks, and the crossbowman hits his ally again, and Takwon throws his sword at him, which hits the target. Yujong says she means they should just show them. The player that Takwon fought rises. Takwon uses the Flicker special skill Chain Hail, which temporarily showers perfectly similar weapons. Yujong says that this is what happens when their guild is contacted. At the same time in the royal palace, the guard commander tells Sungsu and Haichen that they are both young and talented people who have made it to the finals. They have a bright future ahead of them. Sungsu asks, "Isn't such a compliment somewhat embarrassing?" Haken says that he is still missing something in many aspects. The guard commander says that they had no choice but to stop the battle in the middle due to the incident. It's amazing that they both made it to the finals at such a young age. Haken says at the same time as Sungsu that if they could finish it, he would definitely win. Sungsu says that if they could finish, the world would revolve around him. The commander of the guard says that it is very good to be young. He will tell them everything quickly, because it looks like this is an emergency. Following the polar bear and the black tiger, the two victorious guilds will become the third knightly order. Perhaps the name Lyrebird would suit them. Ever since the royal palace was attacked, the guard commanders and the black tiger knights will protect it. The knights of the Lyrebird and the knights of the polar bear, whose commanders' whereabouts are still unknown, will be tasked with finding the traitor. Since they don't have much time, they can get more information from the polar bear knights. So what are they both going to do? At the same time, Daejong asks, why does 24 hours feel like an eternity? The system window says that there are 40 minutes left before the rune ability recharges. Daejong says he tried to listen to Kola and even got rid of the goblins, even looked at his subjects. Goblins keep showing up to test his patience. They ruined his fun, just when he was about to get stronger. Daejong turns around and sees that the goblins have something broken. He runs toward them and thinks this is it. Is his quest finally here? No wonder he felt uncomfortable. This building collapsed due to poor construction. Daejong asks if this time his mission will be related to architecture. The system notifies that he has become wanted. The game will be terminated if he dies or is discovered by the Knights of the Arthurian Kingdom or another user. Daejong asks why so suddenly. The system notifies you that errors may occur along the way. It must evacuate until a new mission is generated. Daejong thinks that the mission that never showed up didn't really try to fool him, but does the system really think the knight can kill him? At this time in the office of IG Soft, an announcement about the appointment of personnel is written on a sheet of paper. The Astrom bug team is launched. Yeonbi Jo, researcher, Homan Cho, AI developer, Dosuk Gong, device quality, Mando Kim, service support. Workers say that all these people are from the domestic elite. They will catch everything. Rumor has it that their salary has increased significantly, but seriously, right in front of the president's office? The box guy thinks he should have spent more time thinking about this. Right in front of the president's office, he should be focusing on the raid leader. The guy notices that the computer says that there was a plot error. The system notifies that he has become wanted. There will be a punishment. The debuff will be applied until this status ends. Agoraphobia debuff. The more enemies he encounters, the lower his stats will be, down to 40%. Finger-pointing debuff. All his fame turned to notoriety. He will be ignored by more prestigious opponents. Daejong says he expected this, but even if it's kind, he notices something else. The system window says that Evil Mind has been obtained since it first exceeded 2,000 infamy points. An Evil Mind maximizes the effectiveness of targets with strong charisma. However, in the case of an unreasonable command, the targets will respond with hostility. Daejong thinks he could put it to good use and says it's actually good. It's time to settle down here, sometime later. Squeaker tells the goblins that they have all just become quite a bit useful. Daejong stands by, looking at the map, and thinks the area isn't as bad as he thought. Squeaker comes up to him and says that the preparations are over. Daejong says it's good and then they can start. He approaches the goblins and asks, they've always been ignored because they're weak, aren't they? That's why, even with their weak skills, they tried their best to build their defenses, even though it was eventually destroyed. That is why he will give them a good dungeon as a gift. The goblins rejoice and Squeaker looks at him in amazement. Daejong says they must now bring the materials they need. At this time, players from the Endgame Boss Guild are fighting the monster. The archer says she doesn't care if it was a fluke, but their guildmaster made it to the end. The guy says that they definitely got into a guild that is better than they expected. Now they are all appointed knights of the final boss guild. Jelly. My fave asks if he doesn't know it's because their guildmaster knows how to piss people off. They must not slow down and work hard until all the knights have been called. But why is it so quiet here? Sung-Soo cuts the monster and uses the basic swordsman skill of the gravity sword. This basic sword skill delivers a powerful blow to an opponent using strength and weight. Sung-Soo says no one can stop him. The gentleman must take care of it, and then they can rest. Jelly. My fave thinks bad things happen every time he calls them gentlemen. Sung-Soo tells Sir the territory and points his finger down. The player asks what he means. Sung-Soo says this is his territory since he started hunting here yesterday, so he must leave. The player asks if he is serious. Sung-Soo says he looks like he should teach him some gaming etiquette. Jelly, my fave, hits him on the head and says he wondered why they were getting reports. This idiot is off again. The guild members kick Sung-Soo while the archer apologizes and says he's still small. He should understand. If someone reports them again, they will be banned for a week. Sometime later, Daejong says it's amazing that it was all put together in just 20 minutes. An evil mind is certainly useful. Squeaker applauds the goblin. Dejong throws a potion at the goblin and says that before the potion wears off, they need to build a house. The angry goblin asks if they still have a job. Dejong says there is, of course. Is he good at disobeying him? The goblins remember that they once ignored him, and one of them says that he is unexpectedly timid. Dejong says he should shut up. They have 30 minutes to finish. The goblin says he doesn't even have a watch, but he acts like he does. Dejong says that they keep pestering him, though they still do what he says. Should he now pick up where he left off? Gilimi and Kola were summoned with a rune. Kola says that he feels very powerful magic. Dejong says that's why he called him. He should hurry up and tell him about it. Kola says that about it, it's his magic. Dejong asks what's wrong with him. Has he started to lose the ability to speak a little since he left? He does not understand. Did they put a curse on him? This explains why he was relatively weaker for a special boss. He remembers that he just received a bottle and sprays Kola with liquid from the bottle. Kola shrunk in size and a shimmering rune lay next to it. Dejong asks what's wrong with this. Is this some kind of malfunction? Someone has lifted the curse on the Kingdom of Arthur. The magic that was connected to the Kingdom of Arthur has disappeared. The certain someone who placed the curse is furious. Kola's attribute has been changed to Borderline. Borderline is a special attribute that possesses both monster and NPC attributes, but the affected character is considered to be neither. Dejong knew it. He should have given it to Kola from the start, so just like the mission with Squeaker, he must make the right decisions. Kola started dusting himself off and asked if Dejong is really clueless. Since Kola couldn't remove the curse, now Dejong thinks he's irresponsible, right? Everyone was touched by him. Dejong knows what he wants to say. He had told him that he wanted loyalty and truth. Kola lost his body and strength. Of course he was furious. Then he appeared before him, as if he already knew everything, and bestowed upon him a mighty power. This is how he planned his revenge, which he had dreamed of for so long. But he could not even imagine that there was responsibility for such power. Before Dejong found the magic circle, those guys were heading for this continent. Dejong saw a huge shadow behind him who asked, "So he was here all this time?" The system notifies that Dejong was the target of someone who was spreading black magic throughout the kingdom.